What's shaking, everybody? My name is Ross Mandell. We're coming to you today from Woolly Studios in chilly Delray Beach, Florida. What a treat I have for y'all today. Live from Tampa, Florida, Matthew Cox, the host of Inside True Crime, possibly my favorite podcast on all social media. What? Matt, how you doing today?
Good. You said possibly.
It is possibly the number one podcast, really, in my world.
It's okay. And you're okay.
It's right up there, top 2 or 3.
All right.
It's amazing.
I'm good. How are you?
It's really great to see you today, bro. It really is. I mean, Matt and I, for those of you that don't know, Matt had me at his studio, and we did a 5-hour and 11-minute podcast. He said, just keep talking, and that's a crazy thing to say to Ross Mandell. But today, Matt is here in Delray Beach, Florida, my guest, and I must say it's a privilege to have you. I got to meet his lovely wife, and, that's always for men, always, your better half comes along. But today, this is all about you, bro. It's all about your story and getting it out there.
Okay.
So tell us, what's shaking?
Nothing. I'm doing great.
You feeling good? You came in last night.
Yeah.
You surprised me this morning. I get a text like, we supposed to do something today? I'm like...
Did he tell you that?
He's a funny guy.
This morning, I'm like, bro, are we doing something today?
And you go, who is this?
Yeah. And then you were like, yeah, we're doing we're doing a podcast. And I go, who is this?
I'm thinking you're on some kind of drugs or something. But he's just playing with me, everybody. So, Matt, let's jump right into your story.
Okay.
Firstly, where were you born and raised? Where'd you go to school, grow up, etc.?
I went to Tampa. I was born in Tampa, Florida, and I, raised in actually Temple Terrace, which it's actually a city just outside Tampa, basically like a suburb of Tampa. And, mom was a devout Catholic mother. I had a brother and 2 sisters, and I had a learning disability and went to school for kids with learning disabilities.
A learning disability, what does that mean?
I had dyslexia. I think I failed the first grade or something, and then by the second grade, third grade, they started testing me. It didn't make sense. Like, I had a great vocabulary. I was clearly articulate, but I just wasn't performing well on tests, and so they tested me, and they came back and they said he's got dyslexia. He's got some over processing with his reading and writing, and so they put me in special schools for kids with learning disabilities. And that's where I ended up graduating from a school on Davis Island, which is in downtown Tampa, called Yates Academy. Basically, if you pay the tuition, you graduated. So I ended up getting my high school diploma, probably read at a 3rd or 4th grade level, which I probably still read at, and ended up going to college at University of South Florida.
Okay. And
did really well because I tried to get a business degree, but I think it's the only C I've ever gotten was in like accounting 2. I got a C, and so I was like, yeah, this is never going to happen. I actually got a D, to be honest with you. I got a D.
Get honest.
But
it was
a 69.2, and when we added up my scores with the teacher, he would bring you up and add up all your tests. We added up, and I already knew. And I'm looking at him, and he looked at me and he went, let's round up to 70. He goes, so we don't have to see each other again. I said, let's do that. And so I got like a C.
A good teacher.
Good teacher.
Let me ask you one quick question, because this is something that I've come across this in life a little bit. They knew about dyslexia when you were young. Yeah. They knew that there was a learning. When I was growing up, I'm a little bit older. That's a word nobody knew about, dyslexia. So if a kid was just like couldn't read, like they thought there was something mentally wrong with him.
Right.
I don't know at what point they figured out that
this is in the mid to late 70s.
Right. And so how old are you for the audience?
I'm 55.
Okay, so you're 12 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you grew up in Tampa. Let's call it west coast of Florida.
Yeah.
And you graduated University of South Florida. Tell us what kind of kid you are, like generally speaking.
I mean, I was a good kid, But I mean, like I said, I went to schools for kids with learning disabilities, so I didn't have a lot of friends, right? So Temple Terrace is a good 30 minutes away from my school. So all the kids that went to that school were from other areas.
Right.
As a result of that, when you get home, all the kids in the neighborhood that went to the local public schools know each other.
Right.
I don't know any of them. So I grow up very isolated from everyone else. You have one or two friends.
Right.
But they don't, you're not school friends. You're not going to the same activities. I went to, I played soccer, so you have maybe some friends there. But like I said, eventually I graduated high school. Like I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't get in trouble. I'm just,
Well,
isolated.
You're a good-looking man. Okay, he's a very good-looking man. The camera loves him. You can all see that. He has a great rap, great smile, makes a great presentation. So you know what? As a man, when I see a guy like yourself, I figure this guy just sort of cruised through his life early on. You never had a problem with women. You never had a problem like making friends with guys. You're not like some odd guy. You're not like
Well, I mean,
You understand what I'm saying, right?
I understand what you're saying, but I mean, I didn't. That's not what happened. Like I was all. I mean, I think I've always had girlfriends, but as far as friends were concerned, I didn't really have any close friends probably until I was about 17, 18 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm trying to understand, because we all know at some point you went off the rails a little bit, right, as an older guy. But I'm trying to understand if there was anything that happened in your life early on that maybe you can say, well,
I mean, my father was an alcoholic. He's an
that's
alcoholic.
A big tell. That's big.
He was, he was extremely charismatic. He worked for State Farm Insurance, had probably 25 agents. He was a top producer.
Okay.
So he was very,
Successful.
Yeah, very successful, very narcissistic. Like our entire family revolved around him. And I would say that, growing up, I did not meet his expectations of what he felt he deserved as a son.
Is that how you felt?
Oh, yeah. Well, he's 5'10", athletic, smart, super smart. He's got a kid that he has to pay to go to a special school, and he's, what I'm saying? Like I'm short. I'm not extremely athletic. So, he lost interest, I think. And, he would get drunk every few months, and he was very belligerent towards, me and my sisters and everything.
What about your mom?
Yeah, she would call him tongue lashings. He was never violent, but he would, he could easily put you in your place, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Make you feel like you're nobody, you're never going to be anything, that sort of thing.
That really? So instead of being nurturing and encouraging, you didn't get that from him?
When he was sober, he was a pretty nice guy.
Okay.
He was a nice guy. And then he'd get drunk for 3 weeks or so, and he hated everybody, and you were all losers, and you were never going to be anything, and you were never going to. Yeah, he was a dick. But like I said, eventually, eventually I went to college, and
right,
went to college.
You move on, but still, it stays. These things stay with us. I mean, I believe.
Yeah, but once you're you get to that age. I remember when I graduated college. I'll tell you this. So I ended up graduating with a degree in fine arts, right? Like I switched from business to fine arts. I'm never passing microeconomics, macroeconomics. I'm not passing any of that shit. Like that's not going to happen. I realized that after I failed that one class, that I didn't fail, but I failed. So anyway, I graduate with my degree, and just before I graduated, I went and I took the insurance licensing, which is a 22. It was 20. Was it the 2020 license or 20? I don't know. Whatever the name of the license is for like property casualty, it allows you to be an insurance adjuster. The whole thing.
Correct.
Because I kind of thought I was going to go into the same industry as my father.
Interesting.
But I ended up taking a bunch of interviews with State Farm, and I didn't get hired. They weren't hiring for agents, so I ended up getting a job as an insurance adjuster. And I remember that my dad. So I graduated graduated like May 5th, and I think I started my job on May 3rd. Like I actually started my job 2 days before I even graduate college. So
this is in the 90s?
This was 95.
Okay, I'm trying to get. Okay.
So what happens is, I remember my mother had called me like a week before that and asked me to come by and help get some stuff out of some boxes out of the attic. And she said, and I said, okay, I'll be there around 3, because my class got out at like 2:50, and I'm only 5 or 10, maybe 10, 15 minutes away from the house. So I get there, whatever, 10 minutes after 3. I get there. I help my mom with the boxes. And as I'm walking out, my dad was home, and he stopped me and he said, hey, he said, what time did your mother say to be here? She said 3 o'clock.
Oh my God.
And I looked at him and I went, yeah, I said to be there a little bit after 3. I said, because my class got out, and I kind of explained it. He said, I don't know. And before I could even say anything, he said, I don't know how you expect to do anything in life. He said, being 20, he was being 10, the 5 minutes turned into 20 minutes. He was like, being 20 minutes late when you're supposed to be somewhere. And he used to always say being on time was being 15 minutes early. And I understand that. I believe that. But I never said 3. I couldn't, there's no way I could be there at 3.
I understand.
Right. So I looked at him and I was like, okay, because you don't argue with my dad. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. And I just got in my car, and I was driving off, and I remember thinking, oh, God, this is going to kill me. I'm going to be laying in bed for the next week thinking about this. And I thought, and then I kind of thought about it, and I thought, because my father was paying my rent, right? Because I'm going to school.
Right.
The deal is I'll pay for everything, but you got to go to school, get good grades. And of course I did. I'm coming home. I'm bringing home. After that one class, I told you the only C I ever got, everything was A's, because it was a fine arts degree. It's not hard.
I understand.
So it's a joke, right? Like, I'm very artistic. I'm very creative. So
by the way, he's an amazing world-class painter.
Yeah.
I mean, world-class, bro. You just triggered me. I remember seeing in your home all these incredible posters, paintings, and he sells art, I believe.
Yeah, I'm doing a piece right now for a guy.
You guys got to check this shit out. This is. When you talk about fine arts, this is really great stuff.
So anyway, I'm driving down the street, and I'm thinking, fucking prick. And I'm thinking, but keep in mind, I'm starting my job. I start my job 2 days before I'm even going to walk. And I thought, and he's already cut me my last check to pay for my rent. And I went, because I knew I was never getting any more checks, because when he gave it to me, he goes, this is the last check you get. He was so proud. He was so proud of it.
What a dick.
Well, I mean, yeah, but, that's that
You're his son.
No, but that's that whole thing, though. I get it. Like, I get it. You don't have to pay me. You don't owe me anything. So he didn't have to pay my rent. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't have to. I mean, I'm taking out student loans and stuff, too.
I understand.
But he was helping me. But anyway, he said that, and I just remember thinking, this motherfucker. And I went, wait a minute. And so I turned around and I drove back, and I remember I walked into the kitchen.
What?
And he's sitting there, and I remember my mom, and they both look up at me, and they're like, what's going on? And I said, listen, bro. I said, I didn't say 3 o'clock.
Exactly.
I said around 3. My class doesn't end until 2:50. He stood up, he goes, all right, now hold on. I said, no, motherfucker. I said, I'm talking. You're fucking listening. I said, shut the fuck up. And I was just I was furious with him.
You became your father.
I've never told this story.
But you became your father for a minute.
Well, I don't know about that. But so I said, let me tell you something. I said, I have made every class. I graduated with I got like a 3.95, because I only told you there was only one C.
You can't do better than that.
So I said, look, I graduated with whatever it was, 3.95. I said, I've graduated. I already have a fucking job. I passed my fucking license. I went boom, 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 boom. And I said, you're never fucking talking to me like that again.
Love it.
And I remember he looked at me and he goes, listen, he goes, I'm disappointed in you. And I thought, this fucking prick. Because, and I sat there, I looked at him, and I thought, yeah, I figured this was coming. He goes, but he looked at me, he goes, why would you ever let anything I say bother you?
I love that.
He goes, I'm an asshole. He goes, Matt, I've always been an asshole. He said, I'm always going to be an asshole.
I love it.
He said, but I love the fact that you didn't put up with it. And so, anyway, he said that.
You became a man that moment.
And I don't know about that. But anyway, he said.
In his eyes, to some extent.
So he gave me a big hug, told me he loved me, probably one of the few times I think he's ever said that. And I turned around and I left. And I don't think we ever had, after that, there was never a time when he talked shit to me,
words, right.
said anything to me, anything.
That's a great story. What?
Yeah, I never tell that story. It upsets me.
Inside Matt Cox.
Oh, my
That's
God.
really a very, very. That's a real moment, bro. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, let's hope I don't have any more of
Now,
those.
let me ask you: are your parents? Are they alive? Have they passed?
No, my father died when I was in prison.
And
died
we're going to get to that.
Pumped full of morphine and Valium. It was just the way he wanted to go out.
Now, how old was your father? I mean, during the
He
was
was in
your
his-
father much older than your mom, or around the same age? Or
My mom, so my parents, my mother was barren. And they tried to have kids. They eventually found out she's barren. They adopted 2 girls and a boy when they were in their her late 20s, early 30s. Okay. And then when she was 40, she went in for a hysterectomy. And the doctor opened her up, and her ovaries were spongy. And he said, "Did we give her a pregnancy test?" And they said, "No, she can't have kids." And they go, "Well, get one." Gave her a pregnancy test while she was laying there. Came back. She was pregnant with me. They stitched her up. She woke up a few hours later, and my dad was sitting there, and she said, "How did the surgery go?" And he goes, "Not as expected." She's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're pregnant." And she's like, "I came in for a hysterectomy. What are you talking about?" He's like, "You're pregnant." And then I guess 7 months later, I was born.
what an amazing story that is.
But they were in their
bro.
40s. My mom was 40. My dad was like 43.
I sensed from the conversation that your dad was older.
Yeah, well, a little bit older.
But older, meaning your dad was older when you were
Yeah.
a kid.
Yeah, so by the time he's already, when I'm, 24, 25, graduating college, he was basically at 65, right? So he's 65, 64, 65.
Yeah.
I think he worked till he was almost 70, and he was forced to retire by State Farm.
Wow.
So,
wow, I'm moved by this whole story. It's a very, very intriguing turn of events. You then drive off, and whatever happened at State Farm? Were you an adjuster for a while?
no, not. I ended up getting I was an adjuster for another company for about a year.
Okay.
I got laid off, and I ended up working construction for a couple years. So by the time I'm 29, I'm dating a chick that's a stripper. I've already bought
Nothing
2.
wrong with that.
No,
Everybody
no,
needs.
no. She was
a
actually
living.
working her way through college, which is the famous stripper thing, right? Like I'm working
Right.
She really was.
She
She
really
ended up
was.
getting a degree in finance.
It's admirable.
Right.
It's admirable. I tell
So
you.
she, just as she was graduating, she met a guy who owned a lender. He owned a lender called Eagle Lending. It was out of North Carolina, Greensville, North Carolina. Anyway, I think so. He had met her at the strip club, hired her, sent her to go get her license. She gets her license, hires her to be a broker. So she's a broker at one of the local offices, and she's not great at it. But she was doing it for like a couple months, and she kept telling me, "You've got to do this. You've got to do this. You got to be a broker. You'd be great at this." And I'm installing French doors and putting down hardwood floors and tile. Like
You're
I'm
living with her at this time.
Yeah, we're living we've got a couple properties.
You're supporting yourself.
I'm supporting myself. I'm partially supporting her.
Right.
And
Also in the west coast of Florida, the Tampa
yeah,
area?
this is in Tampa.
Okay.
We're living in Tampa. But I'm struggling. Like, you're working 60, 70 hours a week construction. It sucks.
You're probably pretty fit, though.
I mean, yeah, but it still didn't pay the bills.
No,
So
I understand.
So I end up deciding I'm going to go ahead and because I realized like I can't work construction. I'm never going to make any real money in construction. So what I decide is I'll go ahead and get my license. So I get my license.
Which license now? The lending license?
My broker's to be a mortgage broker.
Mortgage broker, okay.
And I go to work for that company.
Okay. Eagle Lending.
Eagle Lending. So I will go to work for Eagle Lending, and it takes a couple of weeks or month or so to get your license, and then you have to start working and drumming up business. They weren't running ads for you. Like you're getting 70% of your commission, but they don't run ads.
You got to get your own lead, so to speak.
Yeah, so I'm running ads. I'm getting people to call me. This is back when they had like pagers, right? Like I'm putting signs up that have good credit, bad credit, no problem, call now, and my phone number. And I'm nailing them up to I'm doing everything.
You're hustling.
Yeah, there's no internet. You can't run internet ads.
So this is when?
Well, there was.
This is
just coming out. But
mid to late 90s?
yeah, I would say 97, 98.
Okay.
97, 98.
Okay.
So the very first loan I had fraud in it. Like the very first loan, I brought it to my manager, and she flips it open, and she looks through the whole file, and she takes one document and puts it out, and she closes the doc. She goes, listen, this looks great. And I go, what's up with that? She goes, your borrower was 30 days late on her rent. And I went,
big deal.
30 in the last 2, yeah, but as far as underwriting, it's a deal killer. It's over.
It's a deal killer?
30 days late. She's 30 days late. Who's 30 days late on
Did
their
you guys hear that?
Who would you lend $100,000 to somebody who doesn't pay their bills, their rent on time? That's a perfect indicator.
I've done worse than that, but okay.
It's a perfect indicator.
Personally.
That's a perfect indicator.
No, I understand what
that
you
this
mean.
person's not going to pay their bills or their rent. If you're not paying your rent, I mean, if they're not going to pay their mortgage. If they're not paying their rent, they're not going to pay their mortgage. So the bottom line is, she says, yeah, it's done. And I go, well, what do I do? And I know it's a dead deal.
Right.
I was trained. I went up and they flew me up there for a couple of days. I was trained on
You were a smart
underwriting
kid. You
guidelines.
understood.
I know. And I was like, look, man, what does this mean? And she said, if I was you, she goes, I'd white it out, make a copy of the document, stick it back in the file, send it to underwriting. She goes, they'll never catch it. And I went, that's fraud.
White it out.
Yeah.
And then what do you put? You white out the...
You white it out and you make a copy of it so that you can't tell it's been whited out.
So that one instance...
That 30 days late is gone. Now it looks like she's paid perfect.
That's the difference in getting the loan or not.
Yeah.
Like $100,000. Or whatever it was.
Well, it's nothing. It was like 50, 60,000.
What do you make on... What did you... So you committed fraud.
Yeah, I stuck it back in the file. I sent it to underwriting. They approved the loan, and I get a check for like $2,500 or $3,500 a couple days later.
And so would you say this began your...
I mean, that was the first time I did it. Like, I was thrilled. I was terrified while I was waiting for underwriting, but obviously underwriting did not catch it. So I was thrilled.
Well, how do they catch it?
Well, they could call, but they don't. And if they do, they typically just say, "Hey, is the office manager there?" "Yes." "Did you fill out this form?" And they go, "She goes, yeah, I filled it out." And they go, "Okay, thank you."
They don't signed it and co-signed it and all that.
Yeah, they don't. They're not really doing a super good job.
But you were aware that you were just...
I'm totally aware it's fraud.
Okay, and how did you feel about that? Because now you've crossed a line. Would you say this is the first time you've really crossed a line like that in your life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I also know that I'm behind on my car payment. You know, I'm behind on my rent.
Right.
Or about to be behind on my mortgage. Sorry, about to be behind on my mortgage, or maybe I even was. And I am definitely behind on my car payment because I remember thinking Ford was looking for my car, and so I mean I went in deep into debt.
Right.
You know, to get into this position, like this loan has to close. So I did that. Within a week, somebody else, I get all their documents in, and they don't make enough money to get the loan. So I changed their W-2s and pay stubs.
You changed their W-2s. Now that's a little bit more...
Listen,
involved,
if you're going to be shocked by everything I say, this is going to be a long, long time because this is nothing. This is almost like a gray area for me. This is nothing.
Really? Okay. So I know that at some point there's identities and all kinds of very sophisticated things.
Right.
And we've had that chat, but I always wondered, how did you know all these different things to do? So this is the beginning, though, of your education,
I mean, because I'm getting W-2s in and I'm doing the numbers, and when you realize, okay, this guy doesn't make enough money. You know, back then you had to have your debt to income ratio couldn't be above let's say, for a subprime loan, let's say 45%. You know, a conventional was like 36. So this guy was at he's like 40, and we needed he's at like 50 or 48, and I was like, damn, he's on the cusp. He needs to be below 45. And so what I did was he made $52,000, and I changed it to say he made $59,000, and I changed the W-2s and the pay stubs, and I sent them in. And guess what? He made just enough money, and the loan closed, and I get a check for $3,500.
White out again?
No, this is cutting and pasting. Like I actually took the documents, made copies, cut them, pasted them together, went and made copies. They're perfect. Okay. And keep in mind, when they call to verify his employment, all they're doing is saying, does this guy work here?
Right. They're not going to ask how much money he made, right?
Yeah, he worked
still staring at a W-2, right?
Yeah, why would I ask? Who's going to change a W? Who would do that?
Right.
What kind of despicable human being would change that?
Not despicable. To me, it's involved. That takes like some
I
arts
think
and
the
crafts
judge,
work.
I think the judge called it a sophisticated means. There was an enhancement for a lot of
Familiar
stuff.
with that enhancement.
Right. So what
Mine was
happens?
a little more involved. Go ahead.
What ends up
So
happening
now
is
you're working for this Eagle Lending.
yeah, and so
You're wheeling and
everybody
dealing. You're doing a little, cutting and pasting and whiting out.
yeah, so everybody that walks in the door now is I'm getting them a loan. Like if you don't have enough money in your bank account, I'm changing the
I gotcha.
W2. I'm changing the bank statements. If you the W2s and pay stubs, I'm creating canceled checks. I'm creating like
What is canceled checks for? I'm sorry.
well, when you write a check to your mortgage company, right?
Right.
For whatever, $4,000, whatever your mortgage is.
Right.
A month later, you get, or 2 weeks later after it goes through, you get back a canceled check.
Correct.
It's got a bunch of numbers on the front,
Right.
a bunch in the back. It's right. So I would make canceled checks for $1,000, and so I'd make 24 of them, and then they were all blank. But they said that this check ran through for $1,000. So then all I had to do is fill out the canceled check and change your name only appears on your check in the upper left-hand corner.
Right.
So I'd put your name and address. I'd make a little label. I'd cut it out, paste it on, fill out the canceled checks, sign your signature, put whoever you pay your rent to, and make copies of it. If the bank got 24 months worth of canceled checks for $1,000 to anybody, and I said that's your landlord, then they don't call. Why would they call? We have 100% proof that these guys have been paying $1,000 a month for 24
so this
months.
is another form of creating fraud.
It's all fraud. From here on out, it's all fraud.
Right, but I'm just saying, so we went from cutting and pasting and then
Went from whiting out.
whiting out, cutting and pasting. Now we're doing, this is,
Right.
It's a lot of work.
Right. So
People think fraud is just so easy, but I mean, really, you're working
no,
at it.
it's difficult. You got to figure out, how these things work, right? Like I'll give you an example is eventually what happens is this place gets closed.
Eagle Lending is closed.
It's closed. It had no fault of mine. They lost their secondary.
But you're a top producer. I mean, you're
I was doing great. Like I've been doing it was there maybe 6 months, 6 to 8 months, right? Maybe a year. Maybe let's say 8 to 10 months. So I was there. They closed the doors.
It's almost good that they close, right?
Yeah, because what I did was I went.
And you don't
actually-
get caught.
Well, yeah, I went and worked somewhere else for a couple months, and then I opened my own place, and then I hired a bunch of guys to do loans, and so we're all doing.
A legit place.
No, there's no legit. There's nothing legit.
No legit?
Well, that's not true. Sometimes somebody stumbled through the office
That qualified.
that qualified for it, and it's like, there's nothing we got here, And the problem with those people is that then they start bitching and moaning about the interest rate
Right.
and the broker fee, and you're like, I don't even want to deal with these people. Like, I'd rather you have gone to your credit union and your bank and been turned down because when you walk in, you've had the crap kicked out of you.
Shut the fuck up. And
Right, and when I say, it's $4,500 and your interest rate's going to be 8.5%, and they're like, I just want to close the loan. We're going to close it. It's going to be fine.
I got to ask you a question. So let's say I'm a guy and I'm on the cusp, and I come to your Eagle Lending, whichever your place later on. I don't know. I didn't get the name. And, you just massage it through,
Right.
by committing some sort of fraud. And I'm now living in a home that I bought legally, right? I think.
Well, the loan, you didn't get the loan legally.
Well, I don't know, though.
You think you've got you think you have a loan that doesn't have any fraud on it.
Did these people, what I'm saying is when you fraudulently put these things through, the people weren't aware, right? You didn't go to them and say, listen, Nelson, I just want you to know I had to change this.
Sometimes they were aware.
Sometimes
they have to be aware, right? Like sometimes it's like they give me the W-2s and pay stubs and you're like, I can change these. I'd rather change it and them not know anything.
Right.
But sometimes these guys come there and they're like, yeah, I'm a plumber and I make about $100,000 a year. And you're like, oh, okay. And then they give you 1040s and you're like, you claimed $12,000 last year. Well, yeah, I know, but that's just for taxes. Okay, well, the underwriter's not going to. He's not going to believe.
He doesn't buy that.
He's not going to. Yeah, underwriting at the
it.
bank isn't going to believe that you make 100 when you're. So either you're a tax cheat or you're lying.
Right.
One or the other.
Well, both.
Yeah. So what I would do is I end up going to this girl that was doing taxes for people once a year. At the end of the year, she would do taxes for 2 months. But during the year she's slow. So I go to her and I say, listen, I'll give you $50, but I need this guy to make over $100,000 a year. And she'd go, okay, cool. She'd change all the 1040s.
Right.
and give them to me. And it's funny because at the closing, you sign it's called an 8821/4506 form,
Who would know that?
which allows you it allows the lender to pull your taxes.
Right.
And I'm having you sign that form at closing and give them fake taxes, saying you made $110,000 a year for the last 2 years, and I get a year-to-date P&L. And so which is great. There's nobody to call, but you can check with the IRS.
Right.
Well, here's the thing: if you close with Green Hills Lending, they have to sell that loan. They sell that loan after they've held it for 60 to 90 days. They have it on a credit line. They sell it to somebody like Household Bank or something.
Understood.
Well, you sign that at closing. They don't pull it.
No.
Household Bank does. By the time Household Bank gets it, it's been 60 to 90 days. That form expires in 30 days. So it's really like if he's giving us fake taxes, he's not going to sign this form.
Correct.
So you have them sign the form.
Right.
And they sign it. And I also realized that we would get every once in a while somebody would send it in. And if they sent it in and the lender called and said, "Look, this is what happened." You go, "What? That's crazy."
Right.
Like what my and they're like, "Well, this is what happened." You go, "Oh, okay, so you're saying my client lied? What are you saying?" Yeah. "Well, this and this and this." And I just tell the client, don't respond to them.
Right.
And what they would do is they would still sell the loan. They don't cancel the loan and start foreclosure process. They don't call the FBI. They don't do anything like that. That's not what happens. Like they're thinking, Jesus, now what they're thinking is we need to get rid of this loan.
Right.
And so they just get rid of the loan. And if the guy keeps paying,
now it's someone else's problem.
Right. But most of the time, these people do keep paying.
Right.
And then if they pay for 6 months or a year and then they stop paying and the lender has to foreclose on them, the likelihood that they're going to go through that
zero,
and
almost zero.
Find that one fraudulent document is
almost zero.
Almost zero.
So negligible.
Right.
Now, hold on. What's the name? Now, this is your own place now.
Right. Consortium Financial Services.
Consortium.
Sounds huge.
Yeah, but it's also edgy.
Sounds massive.
Yeah.
It's not huge.
So now basically you become a fraudster at this point.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm running like a mill.
And you're aware of it, fully aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And
so we're just doing –
you still living with the stripper?
No. By this point, I got married. I'm in a horrible marriage.
It's the Puerto Rican wife.
With a really angry woman, who despises me. I mean, there were literally times like we were sitting there and we're talking, and I'm looking at this chick thinking, well, this chick just hates my guts.
I know that.
Like I am amazed here. Like, keep in mind, we got married because she got pregnant.
Oh, that's
right.
What happened.
Yeah.
So it was like Mario, she's going to stab you in the neck with a knife.
Yeah, we're getting married. I'm like, yeah, we'll get married. That's fine. I don't have a problem. Because when your marriage is doomed when you're telling people, yeah, I'm getting married. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll get divorced. Like, that's literally how I'm telling everybody. They're like, you're getting married. I'm like, yeah, if it doesn't work out, we'll get divorced. I mean, that's like, it's not
a real true love story.
No, that's not like, yeah, bro, I love her. Like,
I was waiting for you to tell me that, like, you actually did the marriage certificate.
No.
You're obviously good with documents, though. You understand this documentation world.
Yeah. So what happens with Consortium is one of the brokers that worked for me, she goes and starts her own brokerage business. And I end up closing a bunch of loans through her company for my wife, because you understand what an arm's length transaction is, right?
I do.
Okay. So I have an issue. I can't do a loan for my wife.
No.
Right. So I can't close these. I can prepare the package and everything, and I'll give it and I'll run it through this other company that has no connection with me.
Understood.
And then they lend her they get a bank to lend her the money. So we ended up buying a bunch of properties. I ended up getting into like over 50 rental units in about a year, right? Over a couple $1 million.
You buying 50 rental property. Your wife is buying.
She's qualifying for mortgages.
And you couldn't underwrite those loans. Somebody completely unrelated.
Right.
That's why they call it arm's length.
Right.
But the truth is, it's only an arm's length. That's why it's really a friend. And
I'm really doing
just so you guys know, this happens in business every single day. So people should understand. Arm's length literally means that's how close they are.
So keep in mind, my wife doesn't have a job.
Does she understand what you're doing? Not really.
Yes, she knows exactly what's happening.
So she's like sort of aids and abets to fraud in an arm.
I mean, she just she signs the documents.
Okay.
She's not doing anything. She knows that you're not getting a couple $1 million worth of loans and putting no money down on the loans, and you don't have a job. You're staying home with a 1-year-old. You got a 1-year-old kid that you're taking care of, and all you do is collect rent, and you're getting all these loans.
What does the application say? That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, the application said she worked for a company called Tampa Bay Gutters. And then if you called Tampa Bay Gutters, they answered the phone. They said, yes, she worked here for 5 years. Yes, she makes $100,000 a year.
She has a W-2 or a
She got
1040.
W-2s, pay stubs.
And you've just manufactured all these things.
All of it's made up. And so
crazy.
We closed these loans.
And now she's got you have a son.
Yeah.
And you're collecting rent from all these units. And you actually own these units. In the real world, you own them.
Yeah.
Nobody's aware of the fraud. You're like this big landlord, this big successful guy right now. I'm just trying to understand, right?
Yeah. It all looks very legit. So,
but to the rest of the world, I mean, they just see you. You're probably driving a beautiful car, right? You live in a nice home.
yeah, I'm driving a BMW or something. I forget what I was driving.
You have money in the bank.
Yeah, we look good. We
Looks
look
great
good on paper.
Yeah.
So everything's going well, and the chick Gretchen that used to work for me, opened her own place. I'm running all the loans through her. She ends up doing what's called a straw man scam with somebody. So there's these Italian gentlemen that buy a bunch of properties,
Right.
and they'll buy the property for $1.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Property is really only worth $800,000, so they get $200,000 or $300,000 extra, pocket it, and then they let the house go into foreclosure.
Right.
The problem is they don't even make a first payment. So any first payment default is automatically considered to be fraud, and so the lenders look into it. They do call the FBI.
Yep.
It's very obvious it's fraud. Several loans went through Gretchen's company. The FBI comes in one day with a search warrant and searches her.
Gretchen's, not yours.
Not mine.
Right.
So I know this. Gretchen comes to me and says, Matt, I've got some problems. She tells me what happened. She says, I need $75,000 to give to my attorney. I said, okay, wow, that's crazy. She says, can you refinance my house? And I'm like, I can. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, but you're self-employed. You've only owned the company a year. You need at least 2 years taxes plus a P&L. And she's like, no, I'm going to do it W-2. And she gives me W-2s and pay stubs. That's a complete fraud. It's fraud, right? But she's a friend of mine.
She just made these up, you're saying?
She made them up.
Okay.
And, which is what she did with the straw man, too. Like,
No,
it's
that
all
I understand.
fraud. It's all fraud.
And this is, the FBI now is examining her, but she's still going.
She still does it.
More fraud.
So she gives them to me. I close the loan. I get her $75,000. She gives it to her federal defense attorney. Her federal defense attorney says, you need to wear a wire against this guy. And
Against you.
Yeah. She said.
After he gets the money.
After he gets his money.
That you arranged for him.
So she calls me one day and says, listen, I got to talk to you. The FBI is asking me. My lawyer said the FBI has some questions about you. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah. And I said, okay, look, don't can we talk in person? I go, sure. Meet me at the pizza place down the street. We go to the pizza place. She and her husband come in. They sit down with me. They start talking. They go, the FBI is asking questions about you. They're asking if who your wife is, who you are. And I go, oh my God, you didn't tell them we were married, did you? And she's like, oh, well, we haven't, not really. I mean, I don't know. They already know, Matt. And I'm like, no. I'm like, listen, I said, you didn't tell them the W-2s and pay stubs were fake, did you? You didn't tell them anything like, what did you tell them? Like, so I'm burying myself. Very quickly, I bury myself.
You didn't know she was wired up.
I had no idea.
No idea.
No idea.
Not even suspicious. No.
In the middle of this whole thing, I tell her, look, here's what you're going to tell the FBI. And I start coming up with a story like, you never met my wife. She called on the phone. I figure you'll say, look, I don't even know this woman. We mailed her the documents. She signed them. She sent them in. I didn't go to the closing. I've never met her. I don't know what to tell you. And then we'll just not answer any questions. If nobody's cooperating and nobody's answering, I'm hoping it'll go away, which is obviously not going to happen. But I don't know any better. So I start coming up with this story. And as I come up with the story, her husband says, we can't lie to the FBI. And I look at him. He's like, oh, we can't lie. And I went, what are you talking about, bro? Like, you've been lying to the FBI. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I just closed this loan. It's all fraud. Like, you just – and he stands up and goes, we've never lied to the FBI. We may not have told them everything, but we never lied. Now, I know this isn't – I know that's not true.
Correct.
So immediately I'm thinking, what the fuck are you talking to?
You're starting to get a little suspicious now.
Then I realized, I know you didn't just say that for my benefit.
Right.
And I thought, oh, fuck.
It hit you right there.
These guys are
Wired
wired.
up.
So I look at her and I say, listen, I hope you're going to get something for this. And she looked at me, she starts crying, and she says, I don't have to go to prison. I have a kid. I said, oh, I don't have a kid? I said, look, tell the FBI to call me, not to come in my office. Because I was afraid an FBI officer walks in and says, hey, this is FBI. Brokers are going to start quitting.
It's over.
So the guy calls me on the phone, says, I need you to come downtown. You know what this is about. Literally 20 minutes later.
Really?
He didn't even pretend. He goes, you know what this is about.
Right.
You know what's going on. Come on down. I need you to come down and talk to me. I said, sure, no problem. I schedule a time to come. I hang up the phone. I go interview a few federal defense attorneys. I hire one. $75,000 for this guy. He goes to the FBI.
You had the money?
Yeah, I had the money.
Okay.
He goes to the FBI. I never talked to the FBI. I didn't talk to him. So he cancels that. You're not talking to these guys.
They didn't come arrest you at this point?
No.
Even though
they haven't
have you
indicted me. They don't have anything.
No, but they have you on tape, I thought, with this woman's
Yeah,
wife.
but what are they going to? They're not going to. I'm a white collar criminal who's never been in trouble. They're not going to come in. And it's a minor thing.
Okay.
You know, first, what they think is, they think that there's $500,000. Like they think there's fraud,
Right.
but really all I've done is lied on an application. And
Okay.
really, they're really saying they want to indict me
Correct.
and my wife.
Correct.
So my lawyer goes and says he'll plead guilty to.
And this is just for the arm's length transaction. That's what they're aware of.
It's just
right?
an arm's length.
Right.
Keep in mind,
they don't know all the other stuff.
Keep in mind, there's no that. Well, they do. Like Gretchen and Pete have told them about it, but they can't get everybody. They can get me.
Right.
So my lawyer says, "Listen." I tell my lawyer, "Look, here's what I'll do. I'll plead guilty. They drop everything. They don't indict my wife because nobody's been indicted." He says, "Okay, I don't know if I can get them to do that, but I'll try and do that." I said, that's what I'll do. And he goes, "Listen," he said, "here's the thing. They believe you're running a mill." And I was like, "Okay." He said, "They think you've got 10 or 12 guys that are producing,
Right.
5 or 10 loans, 4 or 5 loans every single month that have fraud. They think that there's millions of dollars in fraud going through your place."
Well, that's what they want. That's
what they
headline
want. That's what they want.
They're not interested in just one guy.
Right. And they also think that I've lost, that they're trying to hit me up for millions. Like
Right.
the FBI agent doesn't quite understand that if I lend you $200,000 on a house that's worth $200,000, there's a fraud, but there's no dollar loss.
Correct.
There's no potential dollar loss because the house is worth $200,000.
Right. So then it's a shitty case for them.
It's a shitty case, but they think there's $500,000, $1 million loss
They
because
have to think that.
they
Otherwise,
see
they
$2
wasted
million.
their time.
They
Right.
see $2 million in loans.
Right.
Here's the problem. What they don't realize is that we've almost sold. A lot of these were rehabs we were also doing, and
Right.
we've sold or we've refinanced. So some of these initial loans don't even exist.
Right.
And we're in the middle of selling like one of the last ones. I'm like, listen, in 2 weeks from now, this thing's gone. There are no existing loans. So anyway, my lawyer says, look, here's the thing, Matt. He said, I can keep you from being indicted. You haven't been indicted. He said, we can do a pretrial intervention. So what's that? He goes, if we, one, can prove that there's no dollar loss. You simply lied on an application. He said, and if you cooperate against your brokers, he said, then I can keep you from being indicted. And I went, what do you mean? He said, I mean, go in, get 10 of the most egregious loans from the most egregious brokers you have, bring them to the FBI and explain to them what they did.
Right.
He said, I can keep you from being indicted. It's called a pretrial intervention.
I get it.
And I went, I'd seen the Godfather movies,
Yeah.
I know how this works. So I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to rat out all my buddies because I thought these guys were all friends of mine, right? Like they're employees.
Sure.
And I should have known that because my dad used to always say to me, he's like, these aren't your friends. These are employees.
Correct.
And, everybody's super cool to me and super nice to me because I'm the guy who can change your documents, fix
Correct.
this, fix that. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, he's like, well, you become a felon. You can't own your business, blah, blah. I said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Tell you right now, had I known then what I know now, you know how like on sales, like you have like a Friday meeting,
Of course.
or Monday meeting
Of
to get everybody
course.
revved up. Where are you doing? How's this loan doing? What's going on? Had I known then what I know now, I would have gone to the Friday meeting with a dolly and scooped up a couple of file cabinets and wheeled them into the back of a pickup truck
Correct.
and told these guys, you guys are going to be asked some questions soon. I suggest you get lawyers. And I'd have gone straight to the FBI and dumped out all those fucking files and said, round them up, fellas.
Would you have done that?
Fuck
That's
those
great.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I could have
think
kept
that's what
myself.
Jordan Belfort did.
Yeah. Well,
Just so you know. I get
listen, here's the thing. And I know you and I have a fundamental disagreement on this, but the only person looking out for me is me.
Correct.
Because when these guys, when the FBI, later on when the FBI comes around, guess who every one of these guys were going down there with lawyers who were not involved saying, I want to tell you what I know. I want to help you. It's like, you're not even on my indictment. Nobody's mentioned your name.
Sick.
So
Trust me,
I was just like, but I said, no, I don't want to do that. And that was, that was so stupid. But that's what I did.
The lawyer didn't press you to do it. He didn't say, listen, Matt, you got to understand, I do this every day.
Yeah, he did, but I was, and he didn't push me hard.
Okay.
He didn't push me hard.
So what was the end result of that meeting now?
I end up pleading guilty to 1 count of wire fraud, and I get 3 years probation.
Not bad.
Yeah. Well, there was no dollar loss. When they finally looked at it, they were like, damn, there's no dollar loss. But there's no potential dollar loss.
Right, but they didn't look at everything. Your body of work.
No, they only looked at what they had me. Right. He keeps them from going into the office because I'm saying no. There's nothing in the office.
You kept your business.
Yeah, but I lost my license. I can't run the business. I sold it to a guy who was a CPA.
Okay.
And he didn't have the money to pay me, so he just kept me on paying me like $8,000 a month.
And
right?
earn out Right.
So he's going to pay me $8,000 a month for the next 5 years or something. And he starts running the business, and he doesn't know what he's doing. Keep in mind, that business was successul because I'm making documents.
I understand.
So, he gets in there. He looks at the books and says, these guys are kicking ass. And it's like, look at these fees.
I'm going to pay this money, no problem.
And by the time this guy comes in, half my brokers have quit.
Right.
So he comes in, we'll just hire new brokers. And of course, I still have things that I have to do for him. Keep up the licenses, keep up that sort of thing. But we were in.
He wasn't part of any fraud
at that time. Trust me,
legit...
he very, very quickly starts committing fraud.
I didn't know. Okay,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he worked for Arthur Andersen, and that when they went under, the same time they went under, he ends up taking over my company. But he's already he's
little fugazi.
Yeah. So
you're on probation now.
I got 3 years probation, and I decide I'm going to claim bankruptcy. I was in the middle of a divorce. Well, basically, let's say I just got a divorce. I was in the middle of it, but whatever. I get divorced.
Did she lose her properties, rental properties and all that?
No, she's making her payments. She didn't get in trouble. They dropped the indictment. They dropped everything against her, the investigation.
And what about Gretchen and her husband?
They go to Gretchen goes to jail for 30 days. Her husband, I think, gets 90. They let him do it on weekends. So one could stay in, one could go out.
Right, to take care of the child. Yeah.
It's a good deal.
Sounds like Nelson's story.
Yeah. She did very well.
By prison.
She did very well. Actually, Gretchen ended up starting some kind of a travel agency or something. So what happens is I end up.
But you've lost your license now.
I've lost my license, and I've also lost.
And you're a felon now. You're a convicted felon.
Right. Yeah, that's just how that works. I pled guilty to a felony. So I'm a felon on probation, and I'm divorced. My wife gets like $100,000 and all the properties.
Wow.
And I'm starting, and I've got a chunk of debt, and I've got some rental properties, and I've got a property or two that I've gotten myself into that are rehabs, and I'm not doing great. And so,
but like really, you built this sort of little mini empire all on fraud.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is so funny because people contact me constantly and ask me for if they can hire me as a business consultant, and I have to explain to them I have had many successful businesses, all based on fraud. So my first comment, the first thing I'm going to tell you is don't hire someone that their entire business model is based on fraud. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you as a business coach. It's just stupid. Like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, but I feel like you're a smart guy. It's like, oh, stop, bro. Get somebody else.
You'd be like a good forensic examiner.
Yeah, well.
You could probably smell fraud. I mean.
Well, I'm sticking with YouTube. But so here's what. So
I don't blame you.
So
you're getting paid now to discuss fraud.
Right.
It's amazing.
So I end up, what I end up doing is I decide that I'm going to lean into it.
What does that mean?
So instead of me saying I'm going to claim bankruptcy, I'm going to move in my old spare room at my mom's house, right? And I'm going to start over. I'm going to sell used cars, and I'm just going to live a sort. I thought, like there were handcuffs on me before, right? Like we were an FHA, VA lender, we were subprime, we were conventional. We had all the licenses, so there was a veil of legitimacy.
Correct. No, but now it was actual legitimacy. Not really a veil; it was legitimacy.
No, because I'm still committing fraud. It appears to be legitimate.
The world has said this guy's straight.
It looks legitimate.
Right.
It's not legitimate, but I have the licenses. But I'm not providing decent loans. These are still fraudulent loans.
Some people would swear by you and say, you know what, I got turned down everywhere, but this guy hooked me up.
I mean,
here's one of the questions that I have as a civilian in this particular case. A lot of people, probably a lot of people were placed in homes thanks to you.
Oh, listen, the chick that I said I whited out, the whiteout?
Yeah.
When I got out of prison, 20 years later, I get out. Because keep in mind, I went on the run. This fraud goes on for whatever. So 20 years later, I see her. She's a traveling nurse, and I said, hey, whatever happened to that house? Because I actually refinanced that house later. I said, whatever happened with that? She goes, oh my God. I sold that house. I made like $100,000. So she pays the mortgage for like 3 years, and a developer comes in and starts buying up all the houses. She sells it. She makes I told you it was only like a $60,000 loan.
Right. But you made $100,000.
But she comes and somebody buys it for like $160,000, $170,000. She made $100,000. She made all the payments. It's fraud. Makes all the payments. Sells it. Makes $100,000. She's best investment I've ever. She's like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, they gave me this offer. I'm like, and I'm thinking, everybody else thinks, oh, it's a fraudulent loan. It went under. The lender lost money. The lender didn't. She made all the payments. She sold it, and she made money.
That's unbelievable. So now, so here's the two questions I have. So there had to be dozens, if not more, of people, right? That you and your crew.
Oh no, there's hundreds.
Hundreds.
No, it's like 40 some odd. Like they estimated it was like $40 million in fraudulent loans.
And did anybody get evicted?
And they don't even know. That's just a guess. Like that's a low end.
You probably
guess.
Don't even know.
No, that probably was a year's worth of fraud. And these are back when loans were. This was back in Tampa when you could buy a 3-bedroom 2-bath house for $100,000, $150,000 in a nice neighborhood.
Right.
$250,000.
Right. Today it's $2.5 million.
Right, exactly. The same house is $1 million.
Did anybody get evicted? Like, did people lose their home as a result of?
No. The FBI doesn't go out and.
That's what I'm asking. So you really did a great service for a lot of people. I hate to say it like that. I mean, really.
I'm not going to say that. So
there
anyway,
were kids that were born in these homes that were raised that have good lives today.
I'm not. So
thanks to your fraud.
Now I'm a scumbag. Now I'm some fucking felon scumbag. And what I decide to do is lean into it. And I decide, you know what? Like before, I was doing a little here, a little there.
Now you're going all in.
I'm going all in. So I decide I'm going to start flipping properties, right?
Okay.
If everyone knows what flipping properties is, right? You know what flipping properties.
Right, but I'm just wondering how you go in from the angle of being a fraudster.
Well, because I first think I'm going to start flipping properties. And this was in Ybor City. I thought in Ybor City, we were already buying and selling houses in Ybor. So I thought.
In where? Where?
Ybor City.
Spell that, Ybor.
Oh, Ybor.
A strange name. Okay.
Yeah. Ybor City, it's famous in it's where all of the cigar manufacturing happened back in the 20s and the teens, 20s, and 30s. And
Tampa area, west coast of Florida.
Tampa area.
Ybor. I never heard of it before.
So I go in there and I figure, and I'd already been flipping properties, figure I'm going to start buying properties. You could buy rehabs for like $50,000, $40,000, $60,000, put 20, 30 into them and sell them for $120,000.
What year is this now? Around
2000.
So
about 2000. About 2000.
Okay, really? Okay.
So that's what I decided to do. The problem is that I'm buying these. I'm going to buy a bunch of properties for $50,000, and I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to put 30 into them, sell them for $100, and make $20,000. And the problem with the people, and I thought, well, that sucks. So what I need to do is be able to get these things to appraise higher.
Right.
So by this point, I'm dating a chick that works at a title company, and I figure out
a title company.
Yeah, that's who closes loans.
Right, I'm just saying. So this
like a real estate attorney.
I understand
right?
exactly.
So I say, look, how can I get the sale of these properties to show up higher? So if I buy a property for $50,000, how can I get it to show up for $200,000? Like, is there a document or something? And she goes, yeah, but you have to pay the extra doc stamps. So so let's say it's a $50,000 sale. The doc stamps would be $350.
Right.
But if you pay an extra, $7 or $1,000, let's say you pay an extra $1,000,
Right.
it'll show up for $200,000. So if I pay $1,400 instead of $350, it shows up for $200,000 sale. It appears that it was sold for
More money.
$200,000 instead of $50,000.
Right.
So I went
All for a few dollars.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so for an extra $1,050, this shows up for $200,000.
Right.
And I know the way comparables work, or the way appraisals work, is you have a subject property, which is the property you're getting the appraisal on, and they find 3 comparable
All
sales
the
within
comps in the area.
They pull the comps.
And you're a former appraiser yourself, so you really
I'm not
know
an
this.
appraiser, but I'm a broker.
You did that, though. Remember when you first came out, you were an adjuster.
I was an insurance adjuster, yeah. So what I do is I end up buying, that was my first thought was, okay, well, I'm going to get these things to appraise way higher. But who's going to buy these things way higher? First of all, the people that buy in these areas, they have bad credit. So I thought that already sucks. A lot of times they don't have their down payments. Even if they have decent credit, they don't have a down payment. So I have to give them their down payment. So that's less money I make. And they're going to bitch and moan because these houses are not in great shape. I don't want to deal with all that. So I thought, and they're not going to pay $200,000 for the house.
No.
So I was like, you know what I'm going to do is if I just create my own borrowers, that's the problem. These borrowers are the problem. I got to get rid of these borrowers.
Damn,
they're an
those
issue.
people.
So what I do is I figure out how to get Social Security to issue me Social Security numbers to children that don't exist. I call Social Security a bunch of times. I ask them, tell them, look, I'm 31 years old, 33 years old. I don't have a Social Security number. And they go, that's not possible.
Right.
You were born in the United States? Yes. And okay, I hang up the phone. Then I call back because I was born on a naval base. They go, that doesn't, you're born in a hospital, you have one. Then I call back. So I call back, I realize that's not going to happen. They go, you got a driver's license? Yeah, you have a Social Security number. Do you have a bank account? You have a Social Security number. I'm like, damn it. So I hang up. So I keep calling over and over, and I eventually figure out that if I say I have a son or a daughter that's 10 or 11 months old and is out of the country, but I need to get a Social Security number issued because they were born with a midwife, not in a hospital, then they say, okay, come in, bring your child's birth certificate and their shot record, and we will issue a Social Security number. So I make a fake birth certificate, a fake shot record. I order the security paper that's multicolored, and if you copy it, it says void if copy that. So I order that. I order a seal. I figure out that the easiest one to make is from South Carolina. So I get a South Carolina birth certificate with the correct paper. I end up making a template. I end up creating a fake birth certificate with a seal. I make a fake shot record, and I go down to Social Security, and they issue me a Social Security card to a 10-month-old kid that doesn't exist.
Did you come up with some good names?
Yeah, the names. So I had just seen that movie, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah. Oh God, what a movie!
So I end up naming them I had some other names, but the bulk of them were James Red, Brandon Green, Michael White.
You went with the colors.
What else? Brandon Green. It was William Blue. I had a David Silver. I had a Lee Black. So I go in slowly and get these Social Security numbers issued to me, and then I go online. I apply for credit cards. They get denied, of course.
Right.
I don't say that they're 10 months old. I say I changed the last year, or the last year, the year they were born. So they're all in their early 30s.
Okay.
And they pretty much all had the same date of birth. It was all like July 7th, 1970.
Okay.
Because it's easy to remember. So I do that. They all worked at different places. I had already set up different dummy companies. I have different cell phones for each one of them. So, so there's nothing overlapping. The names don't match. Right. So I pull their credit. They all get denied. I apply for their credit cards. They get denied. But that creates a credit profile.
Right.
And now I can apply and get secured credit cards in their name. So I get secured credit cards, I make the payments, and after 6 months, they have 700 credit scores.
What?
So now I've got a guy that's been on his job working for Express Tax Services, which is a bullshit company.
Right. Good name, though.
Sounds solid. And it's got a tax ID number. It's been in business for 10 years, whatever. You can buy these companies in Florida that are old companies that have been inactive. You can reactivate them by paying. Or you could just connect to a real company and say this is a DBA in another area, and I could register their phone number and a website in the name of the company, give that to the lender, and they would call that local phone number. Instead of calling the real company in Miami, they call the local one that my guy works for, and I verify it. And if they check the tax ID number, their company really does exist. Anyway, plus I got W-2s, pay stubs. So I create these people that go out and buy these houses for $50,000, but we record the value at $200, $210, $220, $230, $190, and then I do some work on the houses. Instead of spending $30,000, I spend $10,000. Trim the trees, clean up the yards, paint the outside of the houses, fix the windows, but the inside of the houses are garbage, right? We're even storing like the garbage and shit in the house.
Inside the house.
I then have appraisers come. The appraisers. This was back when the banks didn't do the appraisal. Now the banks all order their own appraisals.
They had their own, yeah.
Back then you could send them the appraisal. And worst case scenario was if they didn't like the appraisal, they would do what's called a drive-by appraisal. And they'd send their own appraiser out there.
And it looked nice from the outside.
Right, it looked great from the outside.
Right.
And keep in mind the photos in my appraisal are not the same interior photos because I've got the appraiser on my side. He's doing stuff for me.
He works for you.
Right. Eventually that got to be a pain in the ass, so I ended up ordering the software myself and just doing the appraisal myself. But that's later. So what ends up happening is each one of these guys would buy like 5 houses.
The fake children.
Yeah, I call them phantom borrows. Now what they call this is they call them synthetic identities.
Wow.
Right, so there's a synthetic identity.
The law has evolved in this arena.
Well, because when I was doing it, people weren't doing this. You know, this is 20 years ago. This is actually law enforcement will tell you this is common. It's common now today. But when I was doing it, they had no idea. Keep in mind, I would get an ID in these guys' name by going into the DMV.
Right.
I could take the birth certificate that I'd made for the kid as a kid, and I'd remake it, only saying he's a 31-year-old guy.
Correct.
And you could apply for to vote. So I got a voter's registration. I've got a birth certificate, voter's registration, and then I'd make a lease agreement, make a copy of the lease agreement for a local place.
Right.
Keep in mind, I have what do you call it? I've got credit cards in the guy's name.
Right.
So when I walk into the DMV and I said, "Hey, my name is Lee Black," and they say, "Okay, what do you have? I need a birth certificate." Oh, I got that. They look at it. Okay, that's good.
Right.
Then they go, "Well, do you have anything that shows your residency?" And I'm like, I got
a lease agreement.
I have my or at least I would go, "Well, I got a lease agreement. I also registered to vote." And they go, "Oh, voter's registration, that's good.
Fine.
Lease agreement's good too." Okay, yeah. And of course, I would show them stuff. I'd be like, "Oh, I got my credit card statement." They go, "Oh, no, that's no good."
Right.
But they see it.
Right. They see it. They record it in their head. So
it's called pocket litter. So I've got all the crap that a normal person has. Well, what about this? And they're like, no, that's no good. That's no good. I go, no, this works. This works. This works.
It gives the illusion that you're real.
Right. Stand over there.
Right.
You stand over there. Wait till you're called. You're called 15 minutes later. You go up. You give them all the stuff. They put you in the computer. They go, stand over there. You stand in front on the little yellow line. They take a picture of it. They give you an ID. Now I got an ID saying I'm Brandon Green or James Red or whatever. I can go open a bank account now.
Of course.
Then what I do is I've also got 5 properties in my name. I have perfect credit, 700 credit scores. So what do is I refinance the houses. So Bank of America says, hey, this house is worth $200,000. We're going to lend you 80% of that. We'll lend you $160,000.
Right.
So they give me $160,000. Another bank you go to on another house, they say, hey, it's worth $250,000. They lend you 80%. They lend you $196,000. Right. Another one, they lend you 90% on this house, or 95% sometimes. If a conventional loan, they might lend you 95% on a $200,000 house. That's $190,000 for a house that I've got $60,000 into. So I just made $140,000. Well, let's say $130,000.
And it shows you own those houses for cash.
Yeah, I bought the house. I own them.
Right.
Now, some of them I would actually get loans from hard money lenders. So I'd pay off the hard money, which looks even better.
Right.
Because I've got a mortgage on the house.
Right.
So I'm paying off the mortgage.
Right.
So because the lenders don't like to cut you a check for $180,000 or 140.
Right.
They don't like to give you more than 100,000 if you don't have years worth of.
I get it 100%.
And these guys only have 6 or 7 months worth of credit.
James Green, what a stiff.
So each one of these guys borrows a little over $1 million. Once I realize that they're kind of tapped out, right? They've had their credit pulled multiple times.
Right.
I go to multiple banks and I get what are called personal loans. Mm-hmm. So you go to Bank of America, they'll give you a personal loan for $15,000. Then
as long as you have assets and you have some credit history and all that. Yeah.
Right, which I do.
Right.
So, and I keep in mind, I got mortgages. I got all kinds of stuff on my credit. It looks solid.
Solid.
And so what do they do is they go, I've got a bank accounts, and I have money in the bank. If they say, how much do you have in the bank? Boom, I got $80,000 in this bank account. I got 200, I got 400,000. Because the profit on these is, if I'm borrowing $1 million, I'm making 600,000.
Correct. Pure money.
So then I would go out and I'd get personal loans. I get 4 or 5 personal. Well, sorry,
What are you doing with all this money in the meantime?
You know, we're buying vacant properties and we're building new houses. Like, my idea was that I was going to take this fraudulent scheme and funnel the money into a development company in the area. Because keep in mind what we're doing in the area. We've driven the medium. So Ford. I'm sorry.
You're affecting the price of
Forbes.com.
Everybody's real estate.
Right. Forbes magazine. Forbes magazine said, when I was doing this, the year I was doing this, that the Ybor City zip code, which is 33605, was one of the fastest top 20 zip codes in the nation.
Nice
So I took it from the median price of like 150,000 to like 250, 300,000.
Right.
Within 6 months, it shot up through the roof.
All through these phantom children and all that.
All phantom. So it's over 100 property. I borrowed $11.5 million.
What?
And keep in mind too, I'm also getting small personal loans.
Right.
So that's another 40, 50,000.
Personal.
I'm also getting credit cards. So this guy's perfect credit. He's got a bunch of rental property. So he's getting $30,000, $20,000.
So you're using this money to become real at all or no?
To what?
To become real.
No, I'm getting those guys to load them up on debt and then drop them.
No, but what I'm saying is the money you've raised millions of dollars.
Right.
You don't have it stashed somewhere, or you're not trying to.
No, I'm buying vacant property and building new homes.
Right, which is sort of real though, or is that still sketchy?
No, that's still real.
It's real.
I mean, I don't know. I'm buying vacant proproperties. I go to a contractor. He says,
In your name?
No, in a corporate. We had a corporation called it was called like Alpha Omega. No, wait. Was it? No, it was called Urban Equity. It was called Urban Equity.
Good name, very good name.
Such
like
bullshit. So yeah, urban fake equity. So we're buying. I'm buying a vacant lot for $20,000. We actually we bought over 100 to 150 vacant lots.
I get it.
We did over 100 properties. It was $11.5 million. And
is this all part of the case, or no?
What case?
The case that comes against you eventually.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
So
I don't know if this was all very detailed.
Yeah. Trust me, they got me. So,
but you're rolling it this time now. You're rolling.
Yeah, I'm driving cars I shouldn't be driving. I'm traveling places I don't deserve to go. I'm dating women that I never should have dated. That certainly weren't dating me for my personality or my height or look.
Don't sell yourself short, bro.
So anyway, what happens is everything's going great. And then, you start having your buddies see you. What do you just got back from Europe for a week.
Right.
You just got back here. You're driving this car. You got multiple vehicles. You're building new houses.
You're wearing Prada.
Bro, I heard you got arrested by the feds a couple of years ago.
Right,
what happened?
Right.
Like, how are you? What are you doing? You're on probation. Your probation officer keeps coming by. Like, what's happened? Like, this doesn't make sense. You're doing better now than you were when you were committing fraud at the company. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing great. So,
what did you say you were doing? What was your pitch?
No, I'm renovating. We're flipping properties.
Flipping.
I am flipping properties. Right. Brandon Green just bought 4 properties. This guy
nobody knew who Brandon Green was.
No.
Your friends didn't know. This was all just paper guys, right?
They don't know who. I'm not telling them Brandon. I'm just saying, I just sold 2. Remember that property over there on Columbus? Yeah, I sold that. I sold that for $200,000. Are you serious? What'd you buy that for? 40.
Right.
Man, you're balling. I know, bro. I'm like that. I'm like that.
You got a good eye.
So and of course they don't. Even if you have $500,000 in the bank and you've bought a couple $1 million in properties and your contractor's building 2 or 3 properties, and keep in mind too, people are helping me. So it's not like if there was a check cut for 80 grand,
Right, you're getting all that money.
I'm
right.
getting 80 grand.
You're paying 2 here, 4 here.
Rudy's got to get
Right.
30.
I get it.
Dave's got to get 10. I'm pocketing some. We're all in this development company together. So I'm not making all this money. Money has to go in the development company, and we still have to pay the mortgages.
Right.
Because we're paying the mortgages 3 or 4 times, maybe 4 or 5 months. And then we let the properties go into foreclosure.
That was the formula?
Yeah, because what happens is the property goes into foreclosure, and we stop paying everything across the board.
Right.
And then as soon as the collection agencies start sending out letters, I would print out like a 12-car pileup on I-4 where somebody was life flighted at Tampa General Hospital, and I would you copy and paste it, and then I would change the name they would just say like an individual.
So Brandon Green would be?
Brandon Green was in a tragic accident. So then I print these out.
What?
So then I take them and I print them out on newsprint. I would go to the art store and get newsprint, print it out on newsprint. Then I'd cut it up, lay it on the thing, and make copies. So it looks like I cut it out of the newspaper. There were these things called newspapers. You remember?
I do remember. Trust me.
He doesn't remember newspapers, but they were newspapers. They were physical papers.
Correct.
So it looked like I got a physical paper and cut it up. And then I would write a letter. I'd type out a letter from Brandon Green's sister.
Right. Poor
And she would
Brandon.
say, my brother is Brandon Green. I got this letter from you guys. I wanted to let you know.
He's in a coma.
He's currently in a coma. He was life flighted. The doctor said even if he wakes up from the coma, he'll never work again. So I don't know what you want me to do. I can't afford the house. I just want to let you know. And you send them that, and now they have a reason.
Right.
They put it down, boom, boom, boom. They scan the document. They put it in there. And now everybody from here on out knows.
Write it off.
Foreclose on them. Sell it.
Yeah.
They foreclose on the property for their $180,000 mortgage. They put it back on the market for $180,000, and then it doesn't sell. Right. 6 months later or 3 months later, they drop it to $150,000.
Correct.
3 months later, they drop it to $120,000. 3 months later, they drop it down to $90,000, and someone buys it at $90,000.
Right.
Even
Mike
though
White.
No, somebody buys it at $90,000
Right, I get it.
because the properties, the area is driven up so high.
Right.
There are other investors coming in, buying up the properties.
All because of your operation, so to speak.
Right. Listen, I'll tell you a quick story. One time we went to a guy selling a property for, let's say, 60 grand. And I'm buying places for 50. Old guy, and he's like, yeah, I want 60. I go, 60? Yeah, but bro, we bought that house over there for 40. Like, this house is not worth 60. And he's like, well, that's what I'm selling it for. Okay. A couple months later, go back, everything's getting higher. We're buying up all the cheap ones. So I go back and, bro, I'll give you 60. He's like, I want 80. 80? Get the fuck out of here. So we leave. 3 months later, I go back. I go, I'll give you 80 because I want 100,000. I go, what are you doing, bro? 6 months ago, you wanted 60 grand for this thing.
Right.
And I go, where are you coming up with 100 grand? He goes, do you have any idea what these properties are selling for? Because that property over there sold for 200,000. That one sold for 210. That one over there down the street sold for 190. And I'm like, yeah, I bought all those properties. Like, those are all my fake comps.
Right.
So I was working against myself.
I understand at some point, right?
Anyway, at some point, my friends are starting to see me and see what's happening.
Yeah.
So they start coming to me and they're like, hey, man,
I want in.
I want in.
I get
I
it.
know you're doing something fucked up. I want in. Okay, no problem. I got you.
We can work something out.
Yeah, I got a buddy. His name is Travis. We've known each other since high school, right? Like, super good friend. And so Travis comes to me. He's like, he's always kind of borrowing money. And when I say borrowing money, I mean I give him money.
I understand.
He says he's going to pay me back. I don't know that he ever has paid me back. So he's coming to me one time. He's, hey man, he's like, I would love to do something. I'm like, I don't really need you to do anything. Like, I've got an operation that's running, great.
Right.
I've been doing it like over a year and a half. Right. So this is like 2000, actually like 2 years. I've been doing it for like 2000, and let's say it's coming up, it's middle of 2003.
Okay.
So I'm like, I really don't need you. And he says, come on, can I do this, do that? And I remember thinking, the only problem with what I was doing was I could only borrow one mortgage on the property. And so I remember thinking, if I could borrow 4 or 5 mortgages on a property, I could get like $500,000, $1 million. Instead of me I'm making what? Maybe 100 grand, maybe
Right.
90, yeah, 100 grand on this property.
Right, I get it.
If I borrow 5 of these, I could make $500,000-$600,000 on a property. Let it
one
go into it.
prop.
And I thought, but the only
One
problem
property worth $50,000.
right. The problem with that is
There's several, but let's see what you.
the FBI automatically shows up. Now they know there's fraud.
Why would they show up? Because it's multiple.
Because
mortgages.
I'm borrowing 5 first mortgages on a property.
Oh, or first mortgages.
Well, even if they were, the lender's not going to lend you a second, third, fourth, fifth. Right?
No,
They're not going to do that.
100%
The only reason they're lending is because they are in first position.
Correct.
So each lender, each subsequent.
Oh, so you had to put each lender in the first position.
Yeah. So I was saying what I've thought about, Travis, is this: buying a property where I don't create the market. I just go in, we buy a property for, let's say, $200,000.
Okay.
And we borrow, or let's say, because actually the actual property was like $100,000. So we buy a $100,000 piece of property in an area like in Orlando where I'm not. And we satisfy the loan on the property, the current loan on the property, and we borrow 5 loans on it, or 3 loans, let's say. And we, for $150,000 or $100,000 a piece, and we get $300,000 or $400,000. Put the money in the bank, pull the money out in cash, let it go into foreclosure. The banks realize there's a fraud has been committed. The FBI go, but you have to understand the FBI will show up. He's like, are they going to figure out how it happened? I said, absolutely not. Nothing's going to. The only way they're going to find out is if somebody, they arrest, they get you at a closing.
And it's in Orlando.
And it's Orlando.
So it's already,
We're only turning the phones on and off in Orlando. Nothing's going to lead back to us in Tampa. Nothing. And he's like, and so he goes, okay, cool. Let's do that. Let's do that. So we create a fake person in Orlando. That was Michael White.
Okay, Mr.
So
White.
we create Michael White and we buy a couple properties in Orlando. And then I had a friend named Allison who I don't even want to say dating, whatever. We were barely dated.
Okay.
So we're sleeping together. And she's telling me she wants to do something. Okay, fine. So I say, I'll do something with you in Clearwater. And so we create we get a real identity for her. Okay. A woman by the name of Rosita Perez. So Allison,
He's so wild.
Allison, we get fake IDs. They both open up bank accounts. They both buy properties. Travis gets 2 or 3 mortgages on his property. He's getting $400,000. I think he's got like $300,000 he's pulling out of the bank. His thing's going great. Allison does one property, and when she does the property, when she goes into the closing, she closes one loan. They give her like $100,000. The next loan she goes into, she signs the papers, but the person won't give her the check. And she looks at her ID and she goes, "This doesn't look like you."
Oh, God.
She goes, "What are you talking about?" It is her. It's her.
I understand.
So because the title person's an idiot.
Right.
And doesn't recognize her, she's like, "That is me." She even calls in somebody else and goes, "Does this look like her?" And the other title agent goes, "Yeah, that's her."
Right.
And she's like, "Something's wrong." She goes and blows it up on the copy machine, makes a big ass copy of her.
Right.
And then goes back, gives her ID and says, "Look, I'll call you. Give me a couple days to look into this. And then if everything works out, fine." She comes and gets into the car. She's like, "Holy shit.
Yeah.
Something's wrong." Explains the whole thing. We leave. I say, "Yeah, we're done. We're done. We're done with that."
Yeah.
Well, that woman made a few phone calls and unwinds it pretty quickly. Much quicker than I really expected. And so, but we've got this check for $100,000. Looks like $105,000 or something like that.
Right.
So Allison says, "Let's give the check to Travis and have him deposit it."
Mistake.
And so I go to Travis. We explain the situation. Travis goes, "What do you think?" I said, I don't think we should do it. It's a fucking problem.
Right.
And I said, "I think it's going to come back on us." And he's like, "No." He's like, "It's fine. It's good. Let's just deposit it." So he signs, she signs, they deposit the check. A couple days later, Allison's going, because he's going to go in and get out like $8,000 or something. We're trying to stay under the $10,000. And so I call him up and I said, "Hey man, listen." He goes, "Okay." He's, "I already know why you're calling. Allison wants the money." And I go, "Right." And he goes, "Well, let her know that she's not getting any money. The guy from the bank just called me and asked me to come in, and he wants to witness me signing the check because it's over $100,000. He said he has to witness the signature in person." And I went, "What?"
Right.
I said, "Bro, that doesn't make sense at all. I've deposited many, many checks for over $100,000.
Correct.
He goes, "Yeah, I know, but it's a new account." I said, No. Turn around. you're burned. It's over.
It's over.
And keep in mind, he's got like $100,000, $200,000 in the bank without her check anyway. He's just slowly been taking it out. Like, we're not in a hurry.
I understand.
And he's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. He pulls in I go, bro, I'm telling you, there's cops waiting for you there. He goes, I just pulled in the parking lot. There's nobody here. I said, bro, you don't, no. He goes, oh, quit. He goes, you're shaking like a little girl. And he hung up the phone and he walks into the bank and he gets arrested.
FBI.
Local cops.
Local police. Okay.
So they bring him downtown. When they bring him downtown, I should have known something. I didn't know anything then, right? I didn't know how any of this worked.
I understand.
He had like a $300,000 bond, right? That's what they put his bond at. The next morning, it dropped to like $1,000.
Oh, I wonder why.
I didn't understand.
Right.
So I end up calling his brother-in-law. I give his brother-in-law some money and get him bonded out.
Right.
But what happened was he immediately cooperated, and what he said to them was, "Listen, they're like, we got you on this loan, and this is connected to another loan." And he goes, "Wait a second, I need you to pull up the Hillsborough County website, property appraiser's website." And they go, "Okay." And he says, "I got a much bigger case than what you think." Keep in mind, none of that led to me.
Oh, really?
Well, no, it's all compartmentalized.
I understand now.
Right. Had she not given him the check, they wouldn't have.
Nobody would have known.
Right.
No, it was a mistake.
Right.
That was a mistake.
So all of the cell phones are bought.
Tied everything together.
All the cell phones are bought in Orlando. All the drop boxes are in Orlando. All of the houses are in Orlando. All the banks everything is in Orlando.
As it relates to Travis.
Yeah.
Right.
So
you're in a whole other place, and she's in Clearwater.
What I thought was clever was naming everybody red, green, blue, black, white, silver, right? So he pulls up Hillsborough County website and he says, look up the name James Red. Right. James Red bought 5 houses. All 5 were in foreclosure within 6 months. Oh, look, Lee Black bought 6 houses. All 6 houses are in.
I get it.
Oh, look, Brandon Green, William Blue.
Within minutes,
David,
they saw everything. I got it.
They're like, holy shit. They put together a task force, and over the next 3 to 6 months, they investigate. Keep in mind, I pay for Travis's lawyer. I bond him out, pay for his lawyer.
You didn't know he was?
No, I don't know this. He's coming in every couple of weeks like, yo, bro, my rent's due. It's $1,500. Of course, Travis. I'm sorry you had to come in.
Right, I got you.
I don't even know why you asked. It's my fault. I'm embarrassed that you even had to ask, Travis. I'm sorry. Here's the thing. Hey, Matt, I was thinking about starting a
They hadn't even gotten to you yet.
No. So
they were just building the case,
So,
letting it evolve.
Right. So he comes in, he says, hey, I want to start a tree trimming business. I need a new truck. Of course, let me go get you a new truck.
I got you.
Hey, Matt, I need a boom for the tree trimming business. It's $15,000. No, it's $5,000. No problem. Here's $5,000. Hey, Matt, I need a wood chipper. So 15 for your lawyer, 25 for your new business, which by the way he runs to this day.
Wow.
Right. So anyway, he which is fine. He's got a daughter. He's, whatever.
Tell us about. Let's get to this point now where they're taking you down.
Well, what ends up happening is
he gave up Allison. He gave up you.
He gives up
everybody.
Everybody. So one day I have a buddy who's a sheriff's deputy comes in, and he walks over to me. He says, "Matt, can I talk to you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" So we walk outside. His name's Steve. Great guy. And Steve walks out. I say, "Yeah, what's going on?" He says, "I used to date this chick that was works for the Tampa Police Department." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." I said, "What's up?" He says, "She was recently on a task force that just handed their findings over to the FBI." And I went, "Okay." He said, "My name came up." And I went, "Really?"
His name came up.
Yeah. And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I bought a bunch of properties from you." And he goes, the task force was on you. She came to me this morning before I went to work and told me not to talk to you anymore because the FBI was probably going to be arresting you here in a few days. And I went, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you know somebody that got arrested in Orlando?" And I said, "I do know somebody that got arrested in Orlando." And he goes, "What do I do?" And I went, "Well, Steve, you just signed some papers. Like, you don't know what's going on." Keep in mind, Steve's loans we probably did $2 million in bad loans for Steve alone.
Right.
So, but, once again, all of his stuff was real, though. Like, it was all real.
I understand, but you're a serious player at this point. And
right.
Yeah,
they're coming to get me.
There's a litany of right. You're in the millions and millions, right?
Yeah.
What was the ultimate finding?
Well, ultimately, it was $40 million for my mortgage company, which I was able to
consortium.
Yes,
okay.
which that's what they said, right? Like in the end, I argued that. So I went from me having lost like $25 million. I argued that down to my PSI said, I think my PSI says there was a loss of like $9.5 million. I ended up arguing it down to $6 million.
That's not so bad.
No, it's not bad. So they personally said I'm responsible for $15 million is what they really said, and that I still owed $6 million. My PSI says 9.5, but that's not what they went off of. We argued it. Anyway, the point is that Steve tells me they're going to come arrest me. I said, no problem. I pack up all my shit. I run up all my credit cards over the next 2 days. I pull out $80,000 out of the bank.
Right.
I have a bunch of people. I just write a bunch of people checks.
I got you.
Here's 8,000. Here's 7,000. Here's 6, and that, in like one day, I got out like 80 grand. That's all I could do.
Right.
I swap out my car. I traded in an Audi TT. I traded in on another Audi, get a paper plate that is registered to the dealership. So I figure I can drive that car for a little bit. And I leave Tampa. I take off. I write a letter to my parents and my wife and everybody and say,
So
hey,
they haven't gotten you the FBI.
No.
You just got a heads up.
I could think
So
this guy.
you're hitting the highway, you got some
I'm
money,
done.
you got a new car.
I leave. Why would I stay?
I'm not arguing with you.
I'm already I'm on federal probation.
You still on probation?
Of course.
Oh, God.
I haven't even got off probation yet. Like, I
boy.
know the judge is not going to look at this favorably.
Definitely
It's all
not.
bad. I can't go to prison. I'm adorable. I've seen Shawshank Redemption.
You were a good-looking man.
I mean, my God.
Oh, my God.
I know what's going to happen.
Holy cow.
They're going to make me shave my head to make sure
where do
that
you go?
the mop wig
Where do you
fits
go?
right.
Where do you go?
I go to Atlanta. I actually bring a girlfriend with me. I bring my girlfriend with me because
Which
she
one
wants
now? Who's your
some
girlfriend?
chick I'd known like a month and a half. It was just
got you.
stupid.
I understand.
So I bring her with me. We go to Atlanta.
You're on the lam now.
Yeah, we go to Atlanta. We rent a place in Alpharetta, Georgia, from
It's
a
nice
guy.
place, Alpharetta.
Yeah, a guy named Michael Shanahan.
Okay.
I make a fake ID with the name Michael Shanahan. I satisfy his mortgage, and I borrow 3 mortgages on the house from 3 hard money lenders. And what we do is we just close so quickly that none of the lenders realize what's happening. About $400,000. So $450,000. I end up pulling about $400,000 out of the bank.
Did you have any other money stashed, or you had to leave behind because
Well, there was nothing stashed. Like
it's all in properties? Like
it's all in property. Like if you have $1 million in the bank and you got a day to get out, you got one business
luck.
day.
Right, good luck.
So I leave on a Sunday, but you're not getting anything out on Saturday or Sunday.
you knew nothing about the indictment. It was a sealed indictment.
No,
or
no,
they
I
just-
know it. I know they
They're just
haven't.
going to arrest you.
Of course, I'm
not
on
even an
federal
indictment.
probation. They handed the task force over to the FBI. The FBI is going to come arrest me any day.
Instantly, right.
I'm done.
Right.
Like, what am I going to say? I'm obviously a part of all this. I know everybody's going to cooperate,
Correct.
you know, even though I hadn't actually gone in any of these closings.
I understand.
So,
Crazy.
so we leave. I borrow $400,000 on this property, pull the money out in the name Michael Shanahan, and then that takes a few months. So then I leave there. So we got about $400,000 plus the $80,000, but that's dwindling quick. So we're down to probably
That's pretty good money, but go ahead.
yeah. But we're traveling. We're going to Jamaica.
You have
we're
a
going
passport
to Bermuda.
in another name?
I have a listen. I've had 22 passports, and so here's the thing. At this point, what I do is I realize that my fear is like I can't manage to get a driver's license in any of these IDs names. I could get an ID, but not a driver. I can't get a valid driver's license in a synthetic identity's name.
Right.
They just won't issue them to them.
You don't have a running ID, right? Some ID
Right.
you've been developing that you stashed.
Right. So what I
You
do
burned
is
all your IDs, really.
what?
So you don't have any ID. Let's say Michael Green.
I have IDs, but they're just an ID. If I get pulled over on an ID and I don't have a driver's license,
No, you need a driver's license.
I need a driver's license.
Right, but I'm just saying you don't have one stashed in an identity that you've never used yet.
I
that you
do actually.
developed.
I do, but I didn't have a. I got
You
an
have a driver's license.
I got a driver's license in Alabama. His name was Scott Cugno. He was a guy I actually knew. What ends up happening is I start surveying homeless people. Because I mean, it's not such. I would also run ads and get people's information, but the best was the homeless people. So I start surveying homeless.
They're
people.
available.
Right, they're available and they're not complaining. And back then there was no Obama phones. Like they couldn't. They're just done. They're sleeping under a bridge. They got no way to contact them. Nothing. So what I do is I would order all their documents, and I would go in and get a driver's license in their name, open up businesses in their name, open up bank accounts in their names.
This is Alpha.
This is me on the run.
This is on the run.
Right. I'm getting. I got passports in their name. I'm going to Greece. I'm going to Greece. I'm going to
United States passports.
I've had 22 passports in other people's names.
Does the DHS know this?
I got two of my charges are application for a false passport and use of a false passport, which means you actually used it.
Correct.
So I've got a bunch of those. So what I did was I then go to South Carolina. I buy 2 properties in the name of Gary Sullivan, and I refinance those. I satisfy the loans on those properties. I get the owners to owner finance them, satisfy their loans, and I borrow like 5 mortgages on them. I borrow $1.3 million in those. So I pull that money out. I actually get caught in South Carolina. The police handcuff me, and they inside of a bank. I'm pulling out like $5,000 or something. But one of the banks had caught the fact that there was multiple mortgages and notified, put a red flag, they red flagged my account. Yep. I come in to get the money. They come in, they arrest me, they handcuff me, they question me, they bring me downtown as Gary Sullivan, and I convince them that they've made a mistake at the bank, and they let me go. So they let me go. I go to 2 more banks, pull out some more money, and take off on the run. I then go pack up all my stuff. I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, because I'd relocated. So I'm running a scam here, but I'm living here, but I'm running a scam here. So I drive to Charlotte, pack up my shit with my girlfriend. Remember, the girlfriend's with me.
Correct.
We go all the way to, or I don't pack her up. She's already in Houston. We were relocating anyway because I'd borrow the 1.7. I was going to borrow some more money, get about $2 million, and pull it all out. I'd only gotten like 700,000 out.
Cash.
So
you're driving around with that much.
Yeah, there's
cash.
no Bitcoin. Like I don't know how to launder them. I'm not a good money launderer.
I understand.
So I don't really know how that works. Like back then, if I knew then what I know now, I would have bought like diamonds and gold and silver. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Cash. So I've got this cash. I drive all the way to Houston with her. We get into a huge fight. I take $100,000. I leave her with the rest of the money.
You left her with all the money,
bro? Because she's like, I'll give you $100,000. You know, if not, I'm gonna call the cops. And I'm like, give me $100,000. She's like, I'll turn you in. I'll this, all that. You know, and what am I gonna do? I mean, you know, you meet guys in prison and you tell them this story. They're like, why didn't you kill her?
Exactly.
I'm like, because I'm not a murderer,
bro. I would have.
They're like, for fucking $600,000.
Right. Exactly. Like, yeah, I would have said split the money.
I'll take the 100. Yeah, I did say split the money. That wasn't an option. The option was I'm going to give you $100,000. Right. And I was like, fuck.
She was holding the money.
Yeah.
You really trusted her.
We're both on the run.
I got it.
I need somebody to bomb me out.
Okay.
So what happens is I get $100,000, and she had a powerful argument. The argument was, look, you're going to take $100,000, you're going to have $1 million in a month.
Right. She knows.
I have to live on this money. I can't do what you're doing.
Right.
Which is true. So I take the $100,000. I drive back to Charlotte. I get in my car. I go to Starbucks across the street from my apartment complex because I was going to relocate.
Right.
I go in there. There's 2 employees from the apartment complex. They see me. They're like, they have this heated conversation, and the apartment complex chick, she takes off. And I'm sitting there. I get my coffee. I sit outside in my car. I'm waiting. The male employee comes out. He's staring at me. I'm like, the fuck's going on? Right. Well, what happened was they'd just been interviewed by the U.S. Marshals because they were looking for me.
They're looking for you now. Yeah.
And so he starts screaming. He's right here, waving. And I look back, and there's 2 U.S. Marshals chasing my car, running towards my car. So I punch it. I take off. I go down the street. This is the funny part. This is the part that always kills me. Like that. Like it sounds dramatic, right? But I've already got my seatbelt on. I'm checking my thing. I've checked it. Like there's no traffic. I'm about to pull out, and the guy goes, ah! And I look and I go, oh shit, boom, and I just drive off. It's not like I fishtail down the road. Like in the movie version, I'd be like fishtailing.
It's still
hood jump.
It's pretty wild.
It is.
It is pretty freaking wild.
Here's the part that kills me. This is the part that I thought had balls because all of that was just fear. The part that I thought had balls was I'm driving down the street, and there was a place that the homeless people called the Dog Pound, which was a homeless shelter. I drove it's a mile down the street. The marshals are they're not chasing me, but they're screaming. They know my tag number, where I'm at, everything. And I'm driving, and I see 3 white homeless guys that look like they're in their 30s. And I went, oh, hell no. Boom. I turn around, pull into the parking lot, park the car, jump out and go, hey, you guys, I'm taking a survey for the Salvation Army to determine where we were going to place our next homeless facility. Pays $20 cash right now. You guys want to take the survey? You're going to pay me $20 right now? Right now. And they go, yeah. And I take their information. The guy, like, that to me is like, that's the part that's like, you're not trying to get out of Dodge. Like, bro, there's 3 homeless white guys. That's hard. That takes all day to find that. So I get the information, get my car, I drive to Nashville, Tennessee.
And nobody stops you. No one pulls you over. There's no feds. No, they didn't call in the tag numbers, get this guy, helicopters, all that.
No. I mean, I'm gone by that point.
Right.
So I get to Nashville. I drive. There's a area in Nashville called Green Hills. It's a nice area. Driving through, I see this old guy putting a sign in his front yard. And it's like he's renting out like some townhouses. And I pull in and I go, hey, is this for rent? He's like, yeah. So I check it out. I come back and I said, listen, I don't really have a lot of credit. I give him the name of the homeless guy I had grabbed 2 days, the day earlier. Here's mine. I don't have any ID. I have nothing at this point.
Oh,
I have a business card. I made a business card with a new cell phone I just got an hour earlier.
Oh, God.
And I go, hey, my name's Gary. His name was Joseph Carter. I go, my name is Joseph Carter. Here's my business card. I said, I just got back. I've been in Europe for the past couple of years. I don't really have traditional credit, but I'd love to rent this place. And he looked at me and he looks at my car and he goes, you look like a nice young man. He said, I don't need a credit. I don't need to pull your credit. He said, give me the first month and a security deposit and I'll give you the keys right now. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to like Nashville. They're very trusting here. So within a week.
And you had the cash.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I've still got like $100,000. Right. So I give him the cash. I get the key. Within a week, I've got a driver's license, a brand new vehicle, all my utilities on, furniture, and I've driven my car all the way back to Charlotte and left it at long-term parking, got on a plane and flew back. That took me a week. Let me tell you something. That's very fast.
And that car, you were still driving the car with the same tag?
I drove it all the way back. Yeah, because I don't want it to be found in Nashville. I want them to find it in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Wild, man.
Get on a plane, fly back, boom, I'm perfectly in. So what do? I hang out for 6 months. I start dating. I wait for the credit, these homeless guys I go wait for their credit to mature. I get them the credit cards and everything.
Right.
And then I go out and I start buying houses in an area of Nashville called J.C. Napier. It's a J.C. Napier area. I start buying houses in that area, recording the value of the houses higher, drive up the prices, borrow $3.5 million. I live there for about 18 months. I meet this new chick. We're dating. We're traveling. Everything's amazing. She ends up finding out who I am. She went on my computer by accident.
Okay. She figures it out.
She figures it out, and I should have left, but, I was in love. Her name was Amanda. I just thought she was just so wonderful. And so we started a development company, buying vacant lots. We're buying all the we're borrowing.
She knows the game now. She
knows the whole thing, knows I'm on the run, finds out what my name is. Remember the letter that I wrote my mom and dad when I left?
Yes.
She finds out on my computer.
Right.
So she wasn't snooping. I actually had to go onto my computer and get something for our corporate attorney.
She was snooping.
And she found it, and she looked it up, and whatever. She read everything on me. So everything's going great. And then one day she comes to me and she goes, I was researching your name. And I was like, okay. She goes, Dateline NBC News is going to do a 1 hour report on you. Keep in mind, by this point, I've been in Fortune magazine.
You're on the run.
I've been in Forbes, Fortune. Yeah. There's been 50 or 60 articles on me. I've been on the news. But I'm not worried, right? But this is a national television program. And this is back when they had
big.
This is back when they had 3 channels and some cable channels.
I understand.
So now there's a chance that it would just be washed under the rug, right? Like you wouldn't notice if Dateline did something now. But back then, it's like this is in every single family's.
Dateline's a serious show.
It was serious back then.
Very serious. It's still serious now.
And my fear was, we had a whole discussion. What if we just lay low? We change just areas. We change state. And I said, the problem is that in 6 months we start up somewhere else and they just run Dateline again.
Plastic surgery.
Right. I've had plastic surgery. I've already had that. I already did that. I'm way ahead. I've had a nose job. I had my teeth done.
He's very good looking.
I had a I had what they call a mini facelift, where they go in behind the ears,
Right,
and they suck out all the things.
No wonder why you look so good.
Yeah, and the nose job, and I've had 2 hair transplants. You know, they cut the hair from the back of your head.
Yeah, it's great hair. Just so you know, great hair.
Well, I want to go to Turkey and get one more.
You have great hair, bro.
I appreciate it.
You don't have one hair out of place all this
But
time.
listen, best Bank of America money I spent.
I'm falling apart here, and you got I can't get my documents in order, and I'm legit, and I got problems with my hair or my skin, and he looks great. Go ahead.
So
you're killing me.
It's like I've got stories about. Anyway,
I can't even imagine.
The bottom line is that we decide we're going to leave and go to Australia. Australia at that time was offering, if you showed up with a business plan and it was nothing. It was like $100,000. You had to either have, I think you had to have either prove you had continual income every year of like $40,000 or something, and $200,000 and a business plan. Like it was nothing.
Right.
They'd make you a permanent resident alien, and they didn't do fingerprints or anything. You just show up.
Wow.
So, of course, I'm showing up with, we've got like 2 or 3 million.
And sealed indictments, though.
Well, but I'm showing up as someone else.
I understand.
Like I'm showing up as a guy named.
Right, you have passports.
I would have a passport. I have a passport with a guy that's never been arrested.
So you're golden.
I'm perfect. And they're not going to fingerprint me. This is issued by the State Department. I'm done. I'm good.
Right.
So we're pulling money out of the banks. Amanda, we had a friend. We're giving to, like laborers, contractors, people that know us at this point. Hey, can you cash this check for $7,000 for me? Yeah, okay. They're not asking a lot of questions. So we're cashing a bunch of checks. We go to a friend of Amanda's named Trina and give her a bunch of checks to cash. Small amounts, $7,000, $2,000, $4,000. Like, do this over the next few weeks, cash the checks. Okay. That sparks a conversation between her and Amanda says, we're leaving the country. His real name's Matt Cox. He's currently number 1 on the Secret Service's most wanted list. The FBI's looking for him. The U.S. Marshals are looking for him. She goes and looks me up. She calls the Secret Service and says, what kind of a reward can I get? She gets $10,000. They sit on my house for 3 days until they decide it's definitely me. I pull up one day. Bam, they arrest me.
Secret Service.
What? That's it.
And then let's walk you through. So now they got you. They bring you where? You've committed crimes in like 16 different places.
Yeah, they bring me to the Secret Service's.
Where did you get processed, though? I mean, the U.S. attorney for what state?
Oh no, I have indictments in Nashville, in Tennessee,
right,
South Carolina,
North Carolina,
Georgia, and Florida. So 4 different jurisdictions. They move me from there. They put me on the plane, and I go to what is it? What's it called? Oklahoma City, Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Go to Oklahoma. Then they fly me back. Then they move me. I end up in Atlanta. They consolidate all my cases in Atlanta. I end up getting I can't go to trial. I have no money because they won't let me use any money.
Right.
Of course, it's all fraudulent. They seize all the money. It's not like I can say, oh, well, I did have this one job working at Starbucks, so I did save $2,000.
Not a penny.
I don't have any money. It's all fraudulent. And it's been fraudulent for years. So, and they've caught me. Keep in mind, when I go in to get bond, they're like, Your Honor, he had 6 passports on him. Like we don't know how many other passports he's thrown away. We know he's traveled here under They've got photos of me before and after surgery. I mean, I walk in, I'm like,
love it.
This is bad. This is bad.
So you made a plea deal?
I make a plea deal to plead guilty and cooperate.
Was it an open plea?
No, I'm supposed to get whatever the PSI says. And my lawyer said, well, look, let's look at the PSI. And she goes through the sentencing guidelines with me, and it's going to be about 13 years. But then we get the plea. And I get the plea, and it says 32 years to life. And so I say, oh, I'm done. I might as well go to trial. That's the max I can get. The max I can get is 32 years to life.
Right.
I said, now keep in mind, if you read the newspapers, they say I was facing 150 some odd years. But that's when they stack. They stack.
Bro, I've been stacked, packed.
Yeah, so whatever. So, what I'm saying? So it's like if you just go one charge apiece, I think it's like 50-something years. Anyway, my PSI ends up saying 32 years. They dropped a bunch of the charges, money laundering, everything. Still 32 years. And I said, yeah, I might as well go to trial. If I go to trial, I got 32 years. I'll fucking go to trial. And I'm going to prove that I didn't do this and prove that.
Correct.
And, and so they end up saying, okay, 26 years. My lawyer says, let's go 26 years. Guess when we argued how much money I owed.
Correct. Okay. You bring
26 years. And here's what we're going to do, Matt. She said, what we'll do is I'm going to argue these other enhancements. I'm going to get you down to the 13 because that's where you should be.
Right.
I'm very close with the judge. Don't worry about it. I said, okay. Well, she wasn't that close.
No.
Because she lost every enhancement that she argued.
I got it.
So I get 13
They're all
years.
full of shit.
Now, keep in mind, I've agreed to cooperate.
Right.
But by the time they catch me,
They bet everybody.
everybody's already cooperated.
Right.
And by the time I'm sentenced, it's late 2007. Well, so before they're investigating anything, after I get grabbed, and keep in mind, everybody thinks there's the 2008 financial crisis. The 2008 financial crisis started in mid-2007.
Correct.
So for 6 months to a year, things are looking bad. So people know the economy is doing badly.
Correct.
So by 2008, by the time I end up in prison and the FBI is supposed to be maybe looking into some of these things,
Right.
banks are failing.
They're busy. Too big to fail.
Right.
Everything failed.
Right. So
Everything.
why would we look into crimes that are 3, 4, 5 years old when we have banks that are failing right now for
And they all failed.
for $1 billion?
Correct. $1 billion.
Right. Well,
Hundreds of billions.
I'm saying we've got
AIG
banks.
failed.
We got banks that are going
Right.
under right now. Why are we going to focus on this guy Cox's old
Correct.
stuff? So
26 years.
I got 26 years.
Holy shit. 26 years and you go in. Where did they – you were in Oklahoma detention. Where was your first prison?
No, my first, after a year of being in the U.S. Marshals holdover,
Right.
I was sent to the medium security prison at Coleman, Coleman, Florida.
So medium high, really.
Yeah, so
It's a tough place.
Yeah, but
Right.
like what am I doing? I'm
Right.
I'm teaching GED classes. Like, here's what I always say is like it's a tough place. Luckily in prison, if you get stabbed in prison, you probably had it coming. If you get beat up, you probably had it coming. Like, you bring these things on yourself.
I get that.
I don't borrow all the things that get you in trouble. I don't do.
Right.
I get a job. I'm teaching GED.
You're helping people. You're helping guys.
I'm teaching the real estate class at
Right.
night. Everybody in prison thinks they're going to get out and start flipping real estate.
Right.
So they're all taking my classes. So all these guys, these tough guys that wouldn't,
Correct.
talk to me. Now they're walking by me going, "Hey, Cox, good class last night." And I'm like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
T-Dog, what's wee?
Now, you don't do 26 years.
No. What happens is anything that I told the FBI doesn't lead to anything.
Right.
They're like, okay, well, we're going to investigate it, but they never really do.
No.
What happens is
They got you ready. It's over.
they got me, and some people have gone to jail. Like Allison, the chick Allison,
Yes.
she went to jail for like 3 years. She went to jail because she goes with her lawyer and goes to the FBI and says, "I just want to plead guilty." She never would have gone to jail if she'd done what most people did,
Right.
which was cooperate and kick back and wait. She says, "I want to plead guilty. I want to go to jail. I want to get this over with."
Stupid. Right. I get it. We know now. You don't know then.
Another guy, he was on federal probation anyway. He got his probation got yanked because he was on federal probation. So you're implicated in another fraud.
Right.
He goes in for 3 years. The girl I was on the run with, which had helped me commit fraud, she had gotten 60 months. They dropped it down to
The girl you left with like $500,000?
yeah. She dropped it down to 40. She told them that I left her with $30,000.
Ah.
Her parents retired and bought a house in Florida. So she ended up going, and after I got arrested, they dropped her sentence. She got a Rule 35. They dropped it down to like 40 months. She got a year halfway house plus good time. She did a little over 2 years.
She did Rule 35.
Yeah,
On
but she had
somebody.
cooperated on me.
Oh, on you?
Yeah, because
Okay.
they caught her.
Oh, they caught her. All right.
A
long
year before
you.
me.
Yeah.
So anyway, what ends up happening while
What happened to Amanda?
nothing happened to Amanda.
Nothing.
No.
Our friend Trina?
Oh no, nothing. She got 10 grand.
Yeah.
So, as a matter of fact, Becky, the chick that ended up doing a little over 2 years,
Okay.
lives not far from me
Okay.
in Wesley Chapel. She changed her name, everything. I mean, because she got married, she has a new name. Like, so none of this ever affects her. She's like, nobody I know knows anything about it. Anything. Only her person that knows anything about her is her husband because she met him in the halfway house. So.
Interesting. So you're a straight guy now?
No, you want to know how I got the sentence reduced real quick, or you want?
I
you
know
got five?
100%.
I can do-
You
I can
didn't
do
do 26 years because you would have been a lot older.
No. So what happens with that is Dateline comes in, and Dateline wants to interview me. U.S. Attorney says, "Hey, I want him to be interviewed. I'll reduce his sentence. We'll give him a Rule 35 if he is interviewed by Dateline. We'll consider it substantial assistance."
I love it.
So I do the interview,
Okay.
and my lawyer says, "Okay, did the interview."
Do you remember who the reporter was?
Of course, it was that guy. What's the guy? He's got a horse face. Keith. Somebody talks like he's their main guy with the gray hair.
Okay. I can't think of his name either, but I know.
Yeah. Kind of a jackass. So he interviewed me when I was still at the U.S. Marshals holdover. So anyway, the point is that he interviews me. They put it out. We go to the U.S. Attorney and say, "Okay, you said you reduced Mr. Cox's sentence," and the U.S. Attorney goes, "I said I'd consider it," and it's just not enough.
What?
A year or so later, when I'm in the medium, we get contacted by American Greed. They contact my lawyer, the U.S. Attorney. U.S. Attorney says, "I want him to do it." She said, "Yeah, but you said you'd cut his sentence and you'd reduce his sentence before, and you didn't." She goes, "This time," and I have an email, "This time I'm going to put it with everything else Mr. Cox has done. This time I will definitely consider it substantial assistance." I do it. They release it. She says, "Well, you said you'd consider it." She goes, "I know, and I did, and it's just not enough."
American Greed. So you're on American Greed?
Yeah.
Okay, me too.
Yeah, I know.
Me too. Yeah. It's so crazy, bro. It's so crazy, right?
So
I didn't get any consideration for that.
Neither did I.
Right, apparently.
So this is what the black guys call, they're pimping me.
They are pimping you, boy.
And guys keep saying, "Well, you got to get it on paper." You say, "I did. I told them I wanted it on paper," and they said, "We're not putting it on paper." Right. And then I said, "Well, then I'm not doing it." They said, Go fuck yourself, do your time." And you go, "Okay, well, now wait a minute, I may have been too harsh.
Right.
Let's talk about this."
I understand.
So then I get contacted. At this point, the Dodd-Frank bill has passed.
Okay.
And now all mortgage brokers have to take 7 hours of continuing education every year. 4 of those hours are on ethics and fraud. And I get contacted by the nation's largest education program for brokers, mortgage brokers, loan officers. And he asked me if I'll write that ethics and fraud for him case. And I said, "Absolutely, I will. But I want to make sure that I get credit for it." He goes to Atlanta with my lawyer. They meet with the U.S. Attorney. U.S. Attorney says, "If Mr. Cox does this, I will consider it."
I will definitely consider this.
Substantial assistance. So I do it. He starts using it. We approach her again, and she says, "It's just not enough." At this point, I meet a lawyer, a disbarred attorney named Frank Amadeo, who believes he has rapid cycling bipolar with features of schizophrenia. And in his manic moments, he believes that he's going to be emperor of the world.
I think I met him. I met somebody like him, but I get it.
So, but he's also a lawyer, a disbarred lawyer, but a lawyer.
And so in certain moments, he's brilliant.
He's brilliant.
Right. Brilliant.
But there's also moments when he'll tell you about how his legions are going to march on Washington.
He's whacked. I get it.
So, but I contacted all of the sane attorneys on the street, and they said there's nothing I can do for you. I can't force the government to file a Rule 35. It's completely their discretion.
Oh, they didn't even file the Rule 35s?
No. They said they'd consider it, and it's not enough. We're not going to file.
They didn't even file it?
No.
Oh,
so
my
Frank,
God.
Frank does a 2255 for me.
Yeah.
And eventually beats the government into submission, and they agree to file a Rule 35 on my behalf. They bring
After the 2255.
Yeah, no. So I win the 22. I don't win it, but we're going back and forth, and then the government says, "You know what? Fuck this. We'll give you one level off."
Okay.
Which is 30 months. I think 40 months. I think it's 40 months off. So I go back in front of the judge. We argue in front of the judge, and the judge says, "One level off isn't nearly what Mr. Cox deserves." He said, "Mr. Cox, you're asking for," I think we were asking for like 9 levels off, which was like 15 years off. And he goes, "That was never going to happen." Right. And I'm like, "Oh my God." And he says, "I'm going to give Mr. Cox 3 levels off, which is 7 years, which is more than enough for a defendant that his cooperation has led to no arrests."
Okay, I get it.
And he said, so 7 years off is a gift. And he says, be happy, go forth and do your time.
Right.
So I leave. So my sentence goes from 26 years to 19.
Back to prison, though.
Back to prison. I've already done
And meanwhile,
6 years.
they're flying you all around the place. You're living in detention centers, right?
Yeah. They're putting you on the bus.
It's a nightmare.
So I go back and I think, okay, well, I've got about 8 years left. but I've already done 7.
Still, I get it. I understand.
So I'm thinking, I can do this. I can do this. So I'm walking around the track with an old con man named Ron Wilson.
Okay.
Ron Wilson stole $57 million from churches and pension funds. But he's a very nice guy.
I understand.
I liked Ron. Ron was a nice guy. Nobody else liked Ron.
You walk in the
He
track.
was ornery.
Oh boy, I got
He reminded me of my dad. He was very he had an abrasive personality.
I know the type.
But I liked him. He was about he's 63 maybe. He had gotten 19 and a half years.
Right around your sentence, I hate to say it.
All right, so I'm walking, and he's like, and he was currently cooperating against his co-defendants. So he took 19 and a half years, but he's cooperating. He's hoping to get his sentence cut like in half. And so we're walking around, and he says he's always bitching like they're gonna fuck me out of this, my cooperation. They're gonna screw me out of it. And I'm like, well, why do you say that? And he says because they think I hid Ponzi scheme money. And I'm like, well, you didn't, so don't worry about it. They'd have to find hidden Ponzi scheme money to screw you. He's like, oh, you don't understand. I'm like, okay. So we're walking, and he mentions it. A month later, he mentions it again. 6 weeks later, another 2 weeks later. He's just keeping at least every few weeks he's mentioning it. So one day I go, bro, why do you keep mentioning this? And he says, well, he said, can I trust you? And I go, probably not. And that's what he did. He goes, I did hide some Ponzi scheme money. And I was like, really? Yeah. And he goes, yeah. He said, I gave my wife, she's got, I don't know, like 150,000, not much. And my brother, I gave him, he's got maybe 20 or 30 grand. Like, it's not a lot of money. I go, okay. And he goes, and they've already talked to them, and they've already said they don't have it. And I go, then what are you worried about? Like, they've already lied to him. They're not going to now have a change of heart. And he's like, yeah, they really hate me. I'm like, oh, we'll have Frank file 2255. He'll get you the time off. He goes, yeah, whatever. And I said, plus you're helping them right now. He was about to go testify at a trial. You're going to be good. Now here's what happened. They did bring him back to testify at the trial, and they don't use him, and they don't give him anything.
Oh my gosh.
So but he's still cooperating. And so on other defendants. So we're walking, and anyway, so I go back, and I remember staying in bed that night and laying in bed thinking to myself, is that enough to get me a Rule 35? Like, if I tell the government this motherfucker's hidden Ponzi scheme money,
it is.
Is that enough? I actually thought I felt like it wasn't because they fought so hard to not give me anything.
Right.
I didn't even think. I thought, yeah, now I should have called. I didn't. What I did instead was a month or so later, I called my attorney because she was supposed to send me the transcripts for my resentencing. I had written a memoir, and I wanted to add some stuff the judge said. Like, I love that line of, I was never going to happen. So I wanted to add some shit in there. So I called my lawyer and said, you never sent me the transcript. She's like, oh, God, Matt, I'm so sorry.
By the way.
Yeah, well, what she says is, it's just funny because this is a public defender who doesn't want to talk to you. They don't want to answer the phone. So before I go, okay, well, just send them to me and let me know how much they are. I'll send you a check. No, but she's okay. She goes, well, wait a minute. She said, so what's going on? And I go, what do you mean? She goes, anything happening? And I go, like what? She goes, anything happening in there? And I thought, what the fuck is that? Like, you've never wanted to talk to me before. And I went, you know what? Listen to this. And I tell her about Ron Wilson. And while I'm on the phone, she pulls it up on the computer and she goes, oh, wow, this is a bad guy. Oh, let me make some phone calls. Let me see what I can do. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. Let me know. Hang up the phone.
Right. I'm
never going to hear from her again, I figure. I figure I might get my transcripts. A week later, the CO comes up to me and goes, Cox, come here. And I go, yeah. He said, the next move, he goes, because they have controlled movement.
Right.
He goes, next move, he goes, you got to go to SIS. And I'm like, okay. Now I'm writing guys' stories, so I go to SIS every once in a while because I'm ordering people's Freedom of Information Act. And every once in a while they would catch them and call me in there and go, what is this? And I tell them, I'm writing a story for this guy and I need that. And they go, okay, fine. So they bring me in there and I go, what's going on? And I'm thinking I'm getting mail. And he goes, come here, sit down. I go, what's up? He calls, he goes, you got to talk to this guy. I go, hello? And it's a Secret Service agent. And he says, hey, this is Secret Service agent, whatever his name is. And he said, I understand you know where Ron Wilson has hid Ponzi scheme money. And I go, whoa. I want something in writing. He goes, no, I guarantee you'll get something. I go, no. They'll lie to you. I said, no, you don't have you're not in a position to guarantee me anything. I want something from the U.S. attorney. I put him on my CoreLink system, my email system.
Yep.
2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I get a letter that was forwarded to him from the U.S. attorney.
We'll consider.
We will consider. They said, I said, here's the thing, though. I don't think you're going to indict anybody. So I want the letter to say that if you recover money, you will consider it. So they came back. They said, if we recover a substantial amount of money, we will consider. They said, or if there's an indictment. I didn't, because I'm not thinking they're going to indict anybody. It's too little money.
100,000 is not too little for.
Well, when it's 57 million that's lost.
Yeah,
I
but
figure
anything with six figures, these.
I hear you, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, my
understand.
God, they don't want to give me anything. They didn't want to give me the 7 years.
No.
So anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm like, fuck. So anyway, what I do is I go, okay. So then they say, hey, can you find out this from Wilson? Okay. So I'm walking around. Hey, Wilson, whatever happened with that so-and-so you told me? And he's like, yeah, this happened. Oh, okay. And then so they start asking me to ask him questions. And you understand how
dangerous that is.
I
understand.
So what happens is I'm asking him questions. This goes on for fucking 6 months. So I'm like, listen, bro, like they're asking me questions. They're like, there's no way I can ask him that. I don't know even what you're talking about.
Where's the fucking money?
No, we know who has the money.
No, I understand.
They're waiting. They're now using me to try and gather evidence. But the bottom line is, at one point, they send me an email that say, listen, Wilson's about to get some bad news. Let us know what happens. Okay. 2 days later, I walk out of the chow hall. I'm walking across the compound, and I see Wilson. He goes, Cox. And I go, yeah, what's up? And he said, listen. He said, and I go, what's up? And he goes, I'm kind of wary. Like, yeah, what's up, man?
Right.
And he goes, let me talk to you. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? He goes, you're not going to believe this. They indicted me. They indicted my wife and my brother and me. And I go, for what? And he goes, they brought both of them in and asked them about the money. My wife turned over $350,000 and not 150. He goes, in precious metals and cash. He goes, and my brother gave him 150,000. And I said, I thought you said it was like $100,000 or less than
right.
And he goes, well, I didn't know if I could trust you. And I went, Ron. I'm offended.
What?
I thought we were close. And so anyway, he says, he goes, and what's so funny is when you told your story on my channel,
right.
he's like, oh, these rat bastards. I'm like, those fuckers and those pieces of garbage. And he's like, yeah, I know.
Rats.
So now, and I realized at that moment, I'm like, this guy has no idea what my story is.
No.
So
And
anyway,
somebody commented on that.
oh yeah,
See,
like, do you realize you're talking to a guy that cooperates?
I had no idea.
Anyway, so he, what's funny about that is that it still took him a week or so. He knows he's going to be moved back to South Carolina.
Was he indicted?
Yeah, because he was
Gotta
indicted.
Go through the whole thing again.
Correct. So he knows he's going to be moved, and he's like, so we're walking the track and shit. He's like, what do you think I should do? Now, I don't know if you know anything about cooperation, but there's 3 types of cooperation. One where you get grabbed by the agents and you go, yeah, there's a guy who's selling meth out of that house down the street, and that's it. So all you told them was it was a cursory thing. I know a guy. Right. And guess what? They watch the house, they bust that guy, and then they give you something. That's worth maybe 30% off your sentence. Then there's where they say, look, we need you to wear a wire.
Correct.
We need you to gather information.
Correct.
That's worth about 40% off your sentence. You put yourself in danger.
Yeah.
You help them build a case that they couldn't have built without you. Okay. And then there's the best type of cooperation is where you actually go and
specific information.
It's specific, but you also testify in front of a trial, in front of a jury.
Go into court.
In that case, you're going to get the maximum benefit. So when Ron looks at me and he's like, "What do you think I should do?" I say, "I think you should go to trial." Fuck these guys. They got nothing on you, Ron, because I know they'll have to bring me back.
Correct. Right.
Because I'm at this point in my life in prison.
It's survival,
I'm that
bro.
guy.
It's survival.
I want out of prison.
I get it. It's survival.
Fuck this dude. So, and what's so funny is after he gets sentenced, he sends word back. He goes, "I hope you get as much off as possible." He said, "I'd have done the same fucking thing."
He said that to you?
Yeah. What's even funnier?
Yep.
So He ends up going back. He gets sent back. He gets 6 months added onto his sentence. He got 19 and a half years the first time, 6 more months. His wife, who was divorcing him, by the way, that's part of the reason he felt like she was going to give him the money.
Right.
Because she found out he was having an affair. Anyway, his wife and his brother both got community service.
Okay.
So, so what happens is we have to, once again, the government says, this time they say, we don't even know what you're talking about. We've never agreed to anything. But I have that letter. So I send that letter to the judge.
They're bad. They're so bad.
We file another 2255.
Oh, my God. They make you go through all that shit?
Oh, listen. This time they come back and they say, we'll give him 1 level off. We argue for the next 6 months, and we get them to give me 3 levels off. But that's not 7 years. It's 5 this time. Because, every time it incrementally goes.
I don't understand.
So I get 5 more years off. Well, by the time they give me 5 years off, that 5 years off, keep in mind, I've only got like a year left. I mean, like a year and a half left.
Should be immediate release, right?
Well, I got a year and a half left.
Right.
So, and then they give me 7 months halfway house. So literally, I've got like,
Minutes.
I have like almost a year. So by the time that hits, like a year later, I'm in a halfway house.
Right.
6 months to a year later, I'm in a halfway house.
Now, where'd you do the halfway house time? In Tampa? In that
In
area?
Tampa. Wilson, by the way, if anybody is curious to know, did Wilson die in prison or anything?
Right.
COVID hits.
Oh, God.
He gets out. On his 20-year sentence, this dude only ends up doing like 5 or 6 years.
Total?
Total.
Have you spoken to him?
I want to. So I've been saying the whole time I was on supervised release.
He'll find you.
As soon as I get off, I thought, I'm contacting him.
Right.
Like they release him, put him on an ankle monitor, send him home. I'm dying to fucking contact this. I've looked for him on Facebook. He's not on Instagram. Right. He's probably in 71, 72.
Definitely not.
So, and he's not on Facebook. I'm dying to. I feel. Here's the thing. He's the kind of guy that would be like, you fucking prick. What are you up to?
Right.
That'd be it.
Right.
Like he's like me. It's like, I see all these people that cooperated against me.
What are you gonna do?
I'm like,
right,
Rudy, what's going on? Jimmy, what happened? The one chick, Allison, that cooperated against me. Travis. I've had dinner with Travis several times. Allison, I texted Allison.
You're such a guy.
A couple days ago. Like she's like, what are you doing? How's your wife doing? Like we text
that's crazy. Now here's a question that I want to know.
Yeah.
And people that have met you through me, because I came to Tampa and I was on your show. We did a great podcast. You have built a really serious and legitimate YouTube channel.
Thank you.
I think you're terrific as an interviewer. And after today, I can say you're magnificent as a performer. You tell your story. It's fascinating, bro. My guess is Hollywood movie. What are you kidding me? I mean, I feel like I've lived through an adventure today. I'm honest.
Okay.
And listen, I did time. I did 112 months in custody, and I've heard it all. But the way you deliver your story and the intricacies of the things, I have a million thoughts and questions because I'm very document challenged.
Okay.
I'm very gifted at certain things. My lost number is 140 million.
Right.
So I'm not a kid playing small games. But I'm a document challenged person, and you have this sort of ability or intricacy to talk about these documents like they're nothing. No problem. I just did this. I did that. I copied and pasted. I made a passport. I made a lot. Just to get my driver's license for me is a big, and I really am Ross Mandell.
Right.
How did you build? How did you go from a halfway house, having gone through about 14 years in prison? 13 years in prison?
13 years, just shy of 13.
But a legit 13 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't in a fun camp.
No, I was in the halfway house for 7 months. I did every day at the halfway house. I didn't get out of it.
How did you build this phenomenal YouTube channel?
I actually think I really made some major mistakes because I actually started doing podcasts before I had anywhere to send those people. So the first podcast I did was Danny Jones's podcast. It used to be called Concrete. I did his podcast, and he took me to Waffle House afterwards. And this was late at night. And he
happen to like the Waffle House.
I love Waffle House. I suggested it. So he said, look, man, I can't guarantee this, but I have a feeling this thing's going to be big. You just told an amazing story. I said, okay. He goes, you need to start a YouTube channel. I said, yeah, I know. I want to do like a true crime podcast. I said, but I want to wait. I want to make sure that it's edited and I have a producer and I have all the cameras. He goes, well, you got a cell? He goes, you got an iPhone.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to do it on an iPhone. I said, what? Well, he even said, he goes, they got a good camera. He said, just put it up and shoot it and put it up. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I said, no, I want to do it like a real podcast. Like I want to tell the stories that I've written. I wrote a bunch of stories in prison. So I do this whole thing. He's like, and he looked at me. He's like, yeah, but either way, open it now and start by telling your story. So he gave me all this great advice that I completely disregarded.
Just get started, you saying.
Correct. He's like, look, so what happened is I then did his podcast gets over 2 million. I then do Patrick Bet David, 2 million. Soft White.
How'd you get to Patrick Bet David like that?
He reached out to me. They flew me out. This is when he was in Texas. They flew me out to Texas, and I did it. And this guy's like 6'6", right? He's a giant.
Patrick Bet David?
Yeah, nicest guy.
Big, tall guy.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, how did these people find you? I mean, just because they saw this.
The first few reached out to me because of that one podcast. It was the perfect length, 2 hours.
Wow.
I told a riveting story.
He's teaching me these
in
things,
2
everybody.
hours.
I'm learning right now.
And
this is my coach.
And so then I contacted Soft White Underbelly, and I did that one. So I legitimately did about 10 million views on YouTube before I started my channel. Do you know what 1 million views on YouTube is worth?
Tell us.
It's fucking worth about 20 grand, right? Like it's worth it. I'm saying in advertising, for you to get the same attention or get yourself out there, it's worth it. So I literally did a couple $100,000 worth of advertisement that I blew.
Well, you just didn't know.
I didn't know. Well, I did know. I ignored it because I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted music and I wanted.
Well, you do have a very nice setup.
I do now, but
Colby's really terrific at doing all these cuts and.
But I didn't start with Colby. I didn't start with this. What I did was I realized how bad I was screwing up.
Okay.
And what I did was I just started with just me, just the YouTube channel, and just me.
Doing what?
I was staying I was in a rooming house. And it was just me. I just started telling stories. I didn't tell my story. I just started telling like, hey, here's how I was building identities. Here's how I used to do this. And they would be 45 minutes.
Like
here's
a how-to channel.
Yeah, kind of. Here's how
I get it.
And I would talk about things that were happening in my life. This, that. Like that. I remember somebody was like,
"How many years ago was this? How many years ago?"
This was 4 years ago.
So you're doing this 4 years later.
I did it for 6 months. After 6 months, I had a buddy who said, "Listen, bro, what do you need to turn your channel into concrete? Something like concrete." I said, "Bro, I need 3 cameras, which I do not have.
Right.
I need a MacBook that has like a terabyte of data, of memory,
Storage and memory, yeah.
Like I have I need about $5,000, $6,000 worth of shit that I don't have." And I said, "And I need a producer that will work for nothing,
right,
for at least a year, because at this point I'm making $300 a month on my YouTube channel." And he said, "Okay, let me work on the producer." Within a week, I'm talking to Colby.
Wow.
Then a guy that saw me on Concrete contacts me and tells me, he's saying the same thing. A lot of people are, "Bro, what do you need to do what you're doing now is not going to work. It's not enough. What do you want?" I said, "I want to interview other criminals, but I don't have the setup." And he says, "What do you need?" And I go, "I need 3 cameras. And I need a computer with Final Cut Pro on it." No, not Final Cut Pro. No.
What's it called?
Final Cut. No, it's Final Cut Pro. Sorry, with Final Cut Pro on it. And he said, "Okay, what do you need?" And he said, "What's the computer?" He goes, and he got on the computer and he mailed it to me. He bought the $3,500 by the way, mailed it to me. The
Where
cameras.
was he that he mailed it to?
He mailed it to me. I'm staying at a rooming house.
Oh,
so he mailed
like
it
Amazon,
to me.
he put your address. Okay.
Yeah. So then
What a guy.
I said, "Look, bro." So then I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment, and he said, "Listen," and I said, "Look, I need these cameras." And he goes, "Okay." He said, "I'm not going to buy the cameras for you." And he said, you got to make payments. I said, "No problem." So it was about $3,500. So I buy these
for 3 cameras.
Yeah, for 3 cameras, they're about $750. Plus, I had to get some other stuff. I had to get a switcher. It was about let's say it was about $3,000.
Okay.
So I was going to make payments every month, $300 a month. I made 2 payments. And he sent me a text I think I got made by the third payment. I think he sent me a text. And he said it was Christmas, and he said, "Hey, your Christmas present is payment forgiveness.
Bro.
You don't owe me any more money." He said, "To be honest, I didn't even want the first few payments." He said, "But I just wanted to see if you'd do it, if you'd pay me."
This guy that knows you.
This guy doesn't know me. This guy saw my channel. He saw me on
He was just
Danny's channel,
doing a good thing. Like,
and he doesn't. Nobody knows it, but he went to prison. But nobody knows. He's now a multimillionaire, and nobody knows it.
paying it forward.
And that's exactly what he said. I'm just trying to get you to a position where you don't end up committing fraud again. Because we'd had a few talks, and he'd asked me, "Do you ever think about fraud?" And I said, "Oh, every fucking day I think about fraud.
Every day.
Every time I get in my car
so good
that
at it.
barely starts and my radio goes out," because my radio would go out. Like I'd hit a bump and it'd go out. And I'd have to bang on the dashboard to get the radio to come out. Now, the AC had gone out long before. My AC was rolling the windows down. So he was like, "You still think about fraud?" I said, "Bro, I think about it every fucking time I drive by a house or an abandoned house, or I think, fuck, nobody's watching that house, bro. It's
Every
a nice
fucking
house."
day.
Every day. I think I could do this, I could do that. I could do
Computers,
that.
right? A couple of
Right.
them. Think
Oh,
about it, right?
listen,
In 15
I used to-
minutes, you could have all that shit.
When I was doing this, I had to go downtown to public records and pull the records. When I did it, I had to go into the bank and open up a bank account. I had to go into the DMV. I had to go to the closings and sign. So now I can sit in a Starbucks on Wi-Fi, search the public records, download the documents, change the documents, upload the documents
see
to
what you're
file.
saying.
I can open the bank
Now
accounts
it's a lot easier,
online.
you're saying.
I can
Yeah.
schedule the closings and go to the closings and do remote closings.
It's crazy right now. If someone like yourself, you see,
Right
forget
now,
about it.
listen, right now, if I started a scam right now, in a month from now, I could have $3 million in a bank.
And you probably could do the whole thing from Starbucks.
Right. So do I think about it? I'd be fucking idiot. I'm driving a car that I got to bang on the dash to fucking listen to the radio.
Bro,
There's no
I
AC,
get it.
and it's Florida.
Bro, I get
It's
it.
hot.
I get it.
So
I get it. So now you're in this.
right. So basically, I meet Colby. Is my producer. Colby says Colby looked at my analytics and he said, I work out a deal with Colby, and Colby goes, "I think we can run this thing up to a couple $1,000s a month in a few months." I say, "Well, yeah, but you need to know you might be working for $300 a month." Because I told him I'll give him everything up to $3,000, and then we split like 60-40 after that.
You give him everything up to $3,000.
No, up to $2,000, up to $2,000.
That's
And
for him.
For him.
So you were confident you get past $2,000 for yourself.
Yeah, I was
You have to
confident.
live too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at that point I was doing paintings and shit. I was making enough money to survive. And I also do I do a keynote speaking. So banks and cyber security companies and forensic accounting, they fly me out to conventions.
I mean, you should be. Everybody, listen, this guy, you want to talk about fraud, anti-theft, you got to be dopes if you don't hire this man.
So they fly me out to conventions and I tell my story, and it's like an hour-long presentation. It's about 50 minutes. They ask 20
Title
minutes.
companies, mortgage companies, what?
Yeah,
I
I haven't done a title company yet, but yeah, I have done mortgage companies. So anyway, the point is they fly me out, and so I'm making money. I'm doing okay.
Okay.
I'm on probation, and then Colby within 3 months runs it up to over $2,000, and then
Colby's very talented.
He's very talented, and we just keep going and going and going and going, and it's been 4 years, and now it's got over 500,000 subscribers.
I mean, but these are active subscribers, the comments. I mean, you get people
I
really,
get tons
really
of
love
people.
you, bro. They
Yeah.
love you.
Even the people that hate me, it doesn't matter. It still
Right,
works. Like,
right.
yeah, I'll take. I'd take 90% hatred if because listen, the haters drive it better than the people that
They're
love
like
you.
buoyant. They provide a buoyancy, the haters. Like, I feel bad. I have no haters lately, so please come on
it's-
out of the woodworks,
It's all good. So it's working. It's all working, and we've got TikTok. We have TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. And that's it.
Now
It's going good.
I met your lovely wife.
I met my wife in the halfway house. She did 5 years for I think she did 4 years for a drug conspiracy. She got 5 years. She did like 4 years. She got over 5 years.
But she's beautiful. She's fit. And she looks at you with a man like you needs someone to look at you with love, respect, admiration,
Well, I like to think there's a TikTok where there's a girl working out at the gym, and she's probably in her 30s, and she looks over and she says, when the handsome guy in his 60s starts flirting with you at the gym, and she goes, and you realize this is probably your only opportunity. This may be your only opportunity to own a house. So in Jess's version, it's when the older white collar guy flirts with you in the halfway house, and you realize this may be your one opportunity to own a house. So I always joke because she's like 18 years younger than me. But yeah, we started.
She's beautiful, lovely, looks at you with real love. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? What's happening?
I'm already doing better than I expected.
You're a star, bro. You know that.
I mean, it's going up and up, but and I work. The nice thing about me in general is that I don't feel like I'm working. So I work 80 hours a week, and Jess is constantly like, oh, all you do is work. You work. You're always answering this. You're doing this. You're flying here. You're working 80 hours a week, but I don't feel like it's working.
They say when you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. Isn't that so true right now?
Oh, I mean, definitely.
You and I just had a big work day.
Yeah, this is a work day.
And I'm just having a friggin' blast with you right now.
I try and tell her like I'm exhausted. I'm like, oh man, I did a 3-hour podcast. I'm exhausted. She's like, really? You did 3 hours talking. That's what you did.
She's like, but it is tiring.
It is.
When I
tell her I'm an old man. I'm an old man, 55 years old. I'm an old man.
When I get done with the podcast, like I'm gonna be like, you took me on through like an emotional roller coaster. I'm like, I'll be drained later, and then she'll say to me, what's with you?
This is tough work.
Bro, I just want to say, this is Matt Cox, Inside True Crime on YouTube. The guy is a stud. This guy is a star. This guy is a painter. Check him out. Check out his paintings. You got to tune in to his podcast, my podcast. I mean, this is a special moment. I'm so grateful, bro.
Yeah, no problem.
So great to have you here. Really.